welcome to the Good Stories podcast. My name is Jody, here again with Steven, and I can now legitimately say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. You may not be surprised to learn that I love this time of year. Christmas lights in particular make me very happy, and I don't care at all if they're perfect or just one string draped along a porch. For me, it's a lot like the widow's mite. Do what you can. So to anyone who goes to the effort to put up any lights, thank you. I like to look around and look at them, and I appreciate them. So it helps make the season brighter, I think, both literally and metaphorically. To throw some big words at it. Anyways, I am delighted today to announce that this is our 50th episode. At least how we're counting 50, because we've done some other shorts and specials. But if you've been listening lately, you'll know already that 50 episodes was our initial goal. And we're there after 9 months of podcasting. And truly, it's been a pleasure. It is really fun. And we're so grateful to anyone out there listening. And so glad to have you along with us. Personally, I've learned a lot going through so many different stories. And it's really changed the way I read. And more, I can see how stories are bridged together, linked together. My favorites are those that really do bridge to other stories. And of course, this doesn't happen without Steven. So a massive thank you to you, brother. It's been a joy and a blessing so far. That said, I'm calling our next segment of 50. So this, because of C.S. Lewis Reading Day, will be our beginning of season 2, segments of 50. It seems like a substantial amount of stories and content. And each segment, I figure, is a good time to review. So we're going to keep it going from here. We had some time to kind of discuss some things we liked and things we wanted to work on from the first 50. And hopefully we're going to keep getting better at it and that you all come along with us. So the thing I do like is the last week's top 5 new download locations because it's fun. So this week we want to say thank you to whoever's out there in Flagstaff, Arizona, San Francisco, California, Penticton, Canada. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Spring Hill, Florida, and Dallas, Texas. So thank you to all of you out there. And one more big thing before we get to today's story. I think we should do a Christmas giveaway. Are you okay with that, brother?
I love it. I think it's a great idea.
So I will put a link to a really short survey in our show notes, and I'll put it on Facebook and anywhere we put stuff up. I'm creating this very fun prize box that I know I'd like to get in the mail, so I hope whoever wins it really loves it. And I promise not to send any junk email. We just collect an email so that we can contact you in case you win. So we'll announce the winner closer to Christmas, so get on board and tell us about some of your Christmas traditions, because we have a few. I'm sure we'll talk about them in upcoming episodes. But all that to say, we're going to get down to business now, because today's story is a very special one. Stevie chose it specifically for our number 50, and it is a giant leap into Fairyland, a place where the ordinary dissolves and the marvelous takes over. This story is called Phantastes by George MacDonald, draws the reader, us, in almost immediately with singing gardens. I love that. Living shadows, whispering forests, shifting visions of beauty, both good and evil, and a whole lot more. And we're going to walk through it today. Beneath the very lyrical storytelling, there are some deep themes woven throughout this in that very layered way that I associate with George MacDonald's style. Deep things like the idea of self and memory, pride, love, even grief. This whole tale is poignant in the best way, and it blends joy with sorrow. So I hope you enjoy it. Time for a story.
On his 21st birthday, Anados comes into his inheritance. As part of this, he is given the key to his father's desk, and after exploring it, he discovers a secret compartment. Out of this compartment steps a small fairy, who promises him he will find the way into Fairyland. This happens on the very next day. Without plan or guide, Anados travels deeper and deeper into Fairyland. He makes friends, faces terrible dangers, and ignores a lot of good advice. This, unfortunately, leads to him finding his shadow in the house of an ogre. His shadow makes his life miserable. Anados must search for a way to rid himself of his shadow and to find his purpose in Fairyland and also in the world of men.
Well done. I was wondering what you were going to do.
I was wondering what I was going to do on this too, because, oh man, this book is so great. This is such a good story, but it is so thick and so deep and frankly intimidating to talk about this one because it just has so much to it.
I read a line that says basically that this is considered one of the foundational works, if not the foundational work of all English fantasy literature. I mean, there is a ton of this, and I went and looked at what experts have written on it, and I got overwhelmed. I had to stop. So we're just going to do our best as enthusiasts because so much has been written on. I mean, you could pick any theme and go through this book and talk about it. You could pick any of the sub-stories and talk about it. It's funny, when I first read it, I didn't really get it. It seemed a little goofy to me, a little like a fun fairy tale. But each time I read it, there's more. This is the book that emphasizes to me the need to reread things, because we change and how we read things changes each time. This book emphasizes that big time.
Yeah, in many ways, to me, the definition of a classic is a book that can be read repeatedly with new truths and deeper truths found each time you read it. And according to that definition, this is absolutely a classic. I think it was Mark Twain once did a saying that I liked, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of, the stuff he wrote was like water. You know, people needed it. It was good, but the classics were like wine. And that's really what I feel about Phantastes. It's like wine. It has depth and character and flavor. And with age, right, the more I come back to it and read it again over time, that depth and flavor and character evolves and changes and matures. And I just keep getting more out of it every time.
My personal thought, and I actually found this from other people who are smarter than me, so it's very validating, is it's good to read it in small doses. So I actually struggled to read through it quickly for this episode, and thankfully I've read it several times before, because I don't think I could have done it. Most, I think, of George MacDonald's things that aren't just short fairy tales are very good in small doses, because if you read them, I think the way you should, they make you think, and they make you feel.
Yes.
He writes feelings better than anybody else. Things that you can't typically just put into words. I actually made just a long list of stuff that he somehow addresses, but they're the things that are beyond words. Things like wonder and awe, sorrow and grief. Those things that you really, truly feel deeper than the words that are spoken or written. That's this book. Memory and how we are impacted by it. I mean, there's so many more, but even faith, trust, love. I mean, he writes both the hard and the joyful. I mean, there's things about grieving the loss of a child in this, but also the joy of really experiencing a flower or a tree or the sun and the wind. I mean, he covers the extremes.
Oh, yeah. For an age recommendation on this, anyone. Any age. You're never too young. And in some cases, I think being the younger you are, the more this will delight you. But you're also never too old. And so any age, this book is perfect. The other just piece of advice I would give on people approaching Phantastes for the first time, let yourself experience it. And don't feel like you've got to figure it out. Because you won't. If you go through each chapter thinking, oh, this must mean this, or maybe this means this, or this means this, you're just going to drive yourself crazy and you won't get to enjoy it. So especially the first reading, and I would say for many readings after, just let it kind of wash over you, journey through the world with Anados, and you will be changed by it as he is changed.
I think it very much is what Tolkien, who lived after the author, after George MacDonald, but he calls a secondary world. I mean, he crafts a look at Fairyland, and you walk through it. And he even more than suggests, you know that there's stuff he's not seeing. Very literally. There's a lot he doesn't see. Some by choice, and some by ability, and some by that's not his path. It's this glimpse at a whole world that's new to us and beyond almost our sensations. and we only get to see just a sliver of it. It's so beautiful. I love the whole thing. I'll try not to say that the whole time.
And I will also try not to spend too long talking about C.S. Lewis. But for me, as for many people, I never would have come to George MacDonald if it hadn't been for C.S. Lewis. George MacDonald was C.S. Lewis's literary and in many ways spiritual master. They never met, but George MacDonald and his writings did more for C.S. Lewis that I'm aware of than any other author, and Lewis himself said that repeatedly. So I just pulled out 3 quotes from C.S. Lewis from some of his other works, talking specifically about George MacDonald and talking specifically about Phantastes. So here we go. The first one is a very young C.S. Lewis writing a letter to his best friend, Arthur Greeves. This was a letter dated in October 1915, so before C.S. Lewis went to war, 15 years before he became a Christian. But this is just beautiful. In this letter, in his own words, I have had a great literary experience this week. The book is George MacDonald's Phantastes, which I picked up by hazard. Have you read it? At any rate, whatever you are reading now, you simply must get this at once. Of course, this is hopeless for me to try and to describe it, but when you have followed the hero Anados along the little stream of the fairy wood, have heard about the terrible ash tree, and heard the episode of Cosmo, I know you will agree with me. So he had a hard time summarizing it too.
I will say it is hard to summarize because a lot happens in this book without a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dream.
The next quote I'm going to read is actually one we've talked about already, because this is from that very fine book, The Great Divorce, where in a separate fictional setting, C.S. Lewis meets George MacDonald. And it is this book that C.S. Lewis credits for letting him know that he can trust George MacDonald. And so this is from The Great Divorce after meeting George MacDonald. I tried trembling to tell this man all that his writings had done for me. I tried to tell how a certain frosty afternoon at Leatherhead Station, when I first bought a copy of Phantastes, being then about 16 years old, had been to me what the first sight of Beatrice had been to Dante. Here begins the new life. That is heady praise, and for anybody familiar with Dante, he dedicated his life to Beatrice, a woman that he wasn't married to, but he saw once and fell immediately in love with her and dedicated his life to honoring her. And so here begins the new life. That is straight out of Dante, and that is the degree of importance C.S. Lewis attributed to this book.
Since we're going to talk about a lot of flowery things, I want to point out something a little more pragmatic from George MacDonald, the author himself, that in a letter somewhere, he commented that he was going to try to write something longer, like a novel, and hope that it paid more. Because he kept doing fairy tales, and the man was trying to feed his very large family. So this is a good reason, and part of why this is such a journey.
Indeed. The last quote I'm going to read is, again, the words of C.S. Lewis himself. This is from his spiritual autobiography, Surprised by Joy, and this is his description of encountering or coming across Phantastes. He says, "My ears tingled with the cold. The glorious weekend of reading was before me. Turning to the bookstall, I picked out an everyman in a dirty jacket. Phantastes, a fairy romance, George MacDonald. Then the train came in. I can still remember the voice of the porter calling out village names, Saxon and sweet as a nut. Bookham, Effingham, Horsley train. That evening, I began to read my new book." And then on the next page, this final quote, many people have heard this one. "That night, my imagination was, in a certain sense, baptized. The rest of me, not unnaturally, took longer. I had not the faintest notion what I had let myself in for by buying Phantastes."
I actually have a quote from Chesterton on George MacDonald. Not Phantastes specifically, but I think it applies. And I think Lewis is, and rightfully so, always credited, in association with George MacDonald because of The Great Divorce and because he wrote introduction to his books and things. But I like this from Chesterton too. You ready? It says, "He wrote nothing. He, George MacDonald, wrote nothing empty, but he wrote much that is rather too full, and of which the appreciation depends rather on a sympathy with the substance than on the first sight of the form. For me, that fits very much because you can read George MacDonald and feel overwhelmed. These longer novels, like, what is the meaning here? I don't get it. It can be frustrating. But if you have that sympathy with the substance, and C.S. Lewis had the sympathy for the substance in
Oh,
a
yeah.
high degree. I mean, it is more than you can speak about. It is beyond words. Very beautiful.
I think the last thing I want to talk about before we jump into the words of this incredible book is the name of the protagonist, Anados. Anados is very clearly Greek, and there's some discussion about what it actually means. The most common way this is translated is the way up or ascent, from the Greek word ana and odos. You may know the word odos from things like the odometer, right? It's a road, it's a way, it's travel. And ana is upper, against, or rising. So anados, anaodos is the ascent or the way up. And I think that's the most helpful way of thinking about his name. There is one other way to approach this. Nodos in Greek is not or node, right? A location. And so anados would be no node, no place, no location. Kind of like the word utopia, but anados. I don't think that one fits quite as well, but again, I'm not sure there's a right or a wrong answer here. And so having both of those things in your head can be fun. As we go through this, we're going to talk a lot about things that we don't have an answer for, but it's fun to think about and experience.
Yeah, for Anados, I wrote down, like you said, there's debate, but kind of an upward path. I mean, this young man just turned 21. That's how the story begins. And I think the word Phantastes is also important, and maybe we should talk about that one a little bit later.
I think now is actually a really good time to talk about that
Okay.
because even before the book starts, I have a quote regarding that in my version of this. Phantastes from their fount all shapes deriving, in new habiliments can quickly dite. This is from Fletcher's Purple Island.
So George MacDonald, too, references many other things, a lot like C.S. Lewis in The Pilgrim's Regress, where there's quotes at the beginning. I have read so few of them. I added like 10 things to my reading list just based on this. So the ones I had heard of are Novalis and The Fairy Queen by Spencer. And that is a whole world in itself. But Phantastes, I believe, is used in The Fairy Queen.
It is, but originally that very word itself comes from the Purple Island or the Isle of Man. This was published in 1663, and this is an allegory of kind of the human body, as a lot of allegories were at that time. Phantastes is a character representing, unsurprisingly, fancy or imagination, because Phantastes comes from the Greek word indicating fancy or imagination, or we get words like phantasm or fancy or fanciful or fantastic, all come from that same root. The funniest thing to me about this, though, is the author. I just said his last name, Fletcher. His full name is Phineas Fletcher. And people of a certain age who grew up with the delightful show Phineas and Ferb will know that Phineas Fletcher is one of the two boys that are not going to waste a single summer day.
That is amazing. I did not put together the Phineas and Ferb reference. Good job,
Isn't that so awesome? I love that. So, all right.
Did you look up Ferb?
Now. I don't think there's Ferb involved with this one, but who knows? It's so deep. Maybe it's in there.
Ferb came from something. If he is named Phineas Fletcher, oh man, now I got to look. I'm going to look after this. But Phantastes, very smart people have thought about this book extensively. Somebody... Oh, I don't have a reference. I'm so sorry. But it says the part of the brain, it's the imagination, where we collect images and visions through our senses, and we store them through basically the sensory understanding of the world around us. It's very dreamlike. This whole story is a lot like a dream, and it's nested. Honestly, it drove me nuts until I kind of put this together in my mind. So Anados is a young man who experiences these things through his consciousness, his mind. But it's inside a story, basically, that he finds in a desk. So it's his mind walking through the story that he finds. He's in a library in a house. And in some ways, he never leaves the house. He's walking through almost his youth going through this story. It's this nested story upon itself. And just knowing that really helped me. It's funny, it actually took me to Where the Wild Things Are, the children's book,
Yeah.
where he spends that night in his room, right? He gets sent to his room, Max does, and then he travels to Fairyland and meets the monsters. I love you so, I'll eat you up. But then when he comes home, his mom has left his dinner in his room. It's like a really advanced, beautiful version of that.
The word that has been going through my head as I've been preparing for this is fractal.
Mm.
The idea of a fractal, where you have large patterns made up of smaller patterns, and the smaller patterns represent the larger patterns, and the larger patterns represent the smaller. So you can dive in onto these very, very tiny things and get a sense of the whole, but you can also look at the whole and get a sense of these smaller things that are acting in between. And I think this book in so many ways is just fractally true.
That's very good. I like that you go to fractals. I go to Where the Wild Things Are.
They're both beautiful.
They are.
And they both fit with this book.
That's what I'm saying. So I think the reason to kind of preface this book with a few of our own thoughts on it is because I know some people struggle with it. If you don't have that automatic draw to it, that sympathy with the form, especially with the poetry, and it's very, very lyrical, very poetic. If you don't have a natural affinity for that, you can struggle. I have struggled because those get a little flowery to me. But if you can get past that and have some framework for understanding pieces of it, not that I know all of it by any means, but man, it makes me love it. I love it more every single time.
Yeah. And if it makes you feel better, C.S. Lewis repeatedly said that he kind of struggled getting through the poetry. And he was a poet, but he didn't really like George MacDonald's poetry. So you're not alone.
There's a lot of it.
Well, this first chapter, it starts with a rush as far as I'm concerned. This idea of a young man, father's dead, mother's dead. He has some sisters, but he's coming into his inheritance. So this is a wealthy British landowner, and he's starting to discover what he owns now that he's a grown-up. And he gets the key to his father's, it calls it a secretary. So that's a desk, but it's one of those really cool desks with all the cupboards and panels. And he's sure there's a secret compartment. He starts scouting around it, hunting it down, and sure enough, he finds a secret compartment. There's even this little nub of metal he's got to find a way to push to get inside. And then when this little wooden portcullis comes up and there's this opening in the desk, what he sees are faded roses and a pile of letters.
For Anados, this comes with awe. I want to say almost a feeling of dread or fantasy, because it says, perhaps I was to learn how my father, whose personal history was unknown to me, had woven his web of story, how he had found the world and how the world had left him. He's speculating on what he might find, not only in this desk, but in these personal letters and a pile of rose petals. How poetic is that? Especially if this is his father, a man that he clearly never really knew. And now he gets to find out something. I mean, you come into it with this expectant air of mystery and discovery. It's wonderful from the beginning.
And what he discovers is so startling and so different from anything he could have imagined. Suddenly, there stood on the threshold of the little chamber, this is the desk, the little chamber of the desk, as though she had just emerged from its depth, a tiny woman form, as perfect in shape as if she had been a small Greek statuette roused to life and motion. It's a little woman. A little fairy steps out and starts talking to him. And they have a conversation, which of course goes into philosophy. She asks him things, and he responds, well, what can you do? You're so small. And she says, is that all the philosophy you have gained in 1 and 20 years? She's pretty condescending. She tells him he's silly. Like, if he thinks that she's impossible, why would he ever believe it? He says, it's foolish to let mere repetition make you believe something you think is impossible to begin with. But she condescends to him. And she says that she doesn't really care about how big she is. So all of a sudden, she becomes this tall, statuesque woman, and she is stunningly gorgeous and stunningly beautiful to the point that he is so drawn to her that he approaches her without even knowing it.
I might drive you a little crazy on this one, brother, because I'm going to keep pulling you back. She starts the conversation. There are no words exchanged. She says, Anados, you never saw such a little creature before, did you? She prompts him with the small thing.
She does, yes.
And then turns it on him. Like, is that all you know? Is that all you understand? He is nudged into this idea that things are not what they seem. She prompts that whole idea to begin with, that she can be more than one thing, not just what he sees.
When he does reach out to her, she slaps him down.
She does.
Foolish boy, if you could touch me, I should hurt you. Besides, I was 237 years old last Midsummer Eve, and a man must not fall in love with his grandmother, you know. Well, that's interesting.
He's like, but you're not my grandmother. She's like, how do you know?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, she says, you know a little bit about your grandfathers, I would think, but you don't tend to pay attention to the women. And so the impression is this is indeed a remote grandmother of his. There is fairy blood in his line. And then this really kicks off because she has offered to grant him a wish. Apparently, he has already made a wish without even really knowing it. The day before, he had been reading a fairy story to his sister, and she had asked him, do you think it's possible to go there, to get into Fairyland? And he kind of dreamily said, yeah, I think it would be. I mean, and this was the wish. He tells the fairy that he didn't really mean it like that, but she says, well, don't worry what you meant. You are going to find the way into Fairyland. And he's given a vision. He is allowed to see this great sweeping ocean, and he is filled with longing for this sea. And as he goes to sleep, he gets told that this place exists in Fairyland, and he is going to find it.
George MacDonald certainly had a thing about grandmothers. So if anybody listened to The Princess and the Goblin, this idea of this great, maybe not so great as that grandmother, and also the depth found in their eyes, like the way that you establish someone's, not just age, but their history and their understanding and their wisdom is through the eyes. So the way he views this fairy sea is by looking in her eyes. And I think several times in this book, he is overwhelmed by the feeling of the sea. And I think it's what's it mean when you're looking ahead?
Foreshadowing.
A foreshadowing of where he needs to end up. Okay, she lets him look into her eyes and he sees the fairy sea. Mm-hmm. That's not where he goes first in Fairyland. But she says, you're going to find your way in tomorrow. And then he goes to bed.
And tomorrow comes. And things just start rolling. He is a wealthy guy. He has designed his bedroom, and apparently he has a fondness for flowers, for natural things. His nightstand is oaken, carved with ivy on it. The carpet, which he has designed itself, is meant to look like a green grassy field with flowers mixed through it. Well, as he wakes up, this all starts to come to life. He sees the flowers in the field start to sway. He sees the grass start to become real grass. And a basin in the corner of his room has water trickling out of it that is becoming an actual stream. The ivy on his dresser is turning into real ivy. He gets up and washes. He's got just enough time to get ready to go, to get dressed, before everything turns into Fairyland. And then he starts following the water because he is following motion.
He says, all the way dressed in all haste, I found myself completing my toilet under the boughs of a great tree whose top waved in the golden stream of the sunrise with many interchanging lights. I mean, it's beautiful all the way.
So gorgeous. In so much literature dealing with Fairyland, the transition into Fairyland is one of the hardest pieces to pull off. I mean, it's done with a wardrobe masterfully in the Chronicles of Narnia. It's done in so many different ways, but this way of the familiar immediately becoming unfamiliar, of that which you know and is around you, which you even helped create, all of a sudden becomes something entirely out of your control, something entirely wild and new, and no guidance. He doesn't know where to go, what to do, so he starts following the stream. And it's interesting because, and I know we can't spend this long on every chapter, or we'll never get through this, but he follows a path for a while, and then he leaves it.
With a vague feeling that I ought to have followed its course. That is so strange to me.
Yes.
He has a feeling that, nope, this isn't where I should be. And he does it anyway.
And we start to see some things about his character, because one of the things that happens in the journey to Fairyland through all fairy literature is the idea of advice. Who do you trust? What is told to you? What are the rules? And what happens if you follow them? If you refuse them? If you trust the wrong person? If you don't trust the right person? And all that comes into play. And here initially we see already that he's got something in him guiding him, and he's ignoring it. He's striking out on his own path and his own way. But this leads to our first adventure.
So you've mentioned Fairyland in several episodes, or Arthur is the king on the edge of Fairyland. You've described Fairyland before. Like, what does that mean? What would Tolkien or Lewis mean by Fairyland?
The reason I'm slow in responding is it's a little bit like asking somebody, so tell me what you mean by love.
Right. Yeah, that's a great
Tell
parallel.
me what you mean by beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you mean by the exotic or the other, because Fairyland is all of that. It is something that is different. It's in many ways the unseen world, but it transcends easy categorization. And depending where you're at in Fairyland, it's very different. Pretty much all I can say about what is Fairyland is what Tolkien says. It is a perilous place that I have sometimes been foolish enough to travel into. And Anados is now foolish enough to travel into this perilous world that is completely other. I think the defining characteristic of Fairyland is that it is other, that it is different. It has connections to our reality and the way we see the world, but it is so different that anything can happen there. Not anything in the sense of contradictory or wrong or that there's no rules. It has its own rules, but we don't know the rules. We know some of the rules of our own existence, but we have to learn them in Fairyland. And the rules change in different parts of Fairyland. And so something that is safe in one area is deadly in another. And you don't know until you experience it and walk through it. It's not something that can be explained. It's not something that can be defined, pinned down. It is only something that can be experienced. And as such, Fairyland can only be even remotely understood through story.
You do so good. So you mentioned rules ahead of that and rules in summarizing it. That's exactly what I wrote down reading through this time. There are rules in Fairyland, but you have to figure out what they are because they are not the same. Because as a kid reading through fairy tales and things, it's funny. I think the idea of Fairyland makes people a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a little story because I love this one. Looking out the window at my home when we first moved here, it had snowed outside. We had Christmas lights up. And our dad, who's not a poet particularly at all, kind of a curmudgeon, he looked out the bathroom window at night with the Christmas lights shining on the snow. And it's like, wow, it's like Fairyland. There's something painfully beautiful about Fairyland. But it has rules, and I think that's exactly right, that you have to experience it. This book is this young man experiencing a land where he doesn't know the rules, and all he's going by is his intuition.
Yeah.
And sometimes he ignores it.
To follow up on that briefly, that curmudgeon of a father introduced me to Fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
I read The Hobbit because of Dad.
Yeah.
And so he is why I have lived so long in Fairyland. The other thing about the rules, I want to talk about that briefly. When we hear the idea of rules, we tend to think of legal statutes. Thou shalt not. But in so many ways, I think rules in our world and in Fairyland are more like the steps of a dance. It's more of a required interaction, a way you have to negotiate your relationship with what is around you. You can do other steps, but then you're not doing a waltz anymore. And the steps for a foxtrot are not going to be the same as the steps for a tango. Or if you don't like the dance analogy, let's go with language. There are rules about language. Now, I can make any sounds I want come out of my mouth, but if I don't adhere to the rules of the English language, you're not going to understand me. And so rules are not necessarily a legalistic checklist of do's and don'ts, although it can be that too. And we're going to see that through this story. But I love that concept of thinking of it more like a dance. And he doesn't know the steps.
Yeah. But he is walking. And honestly, that's how I want to go through this book. Because you could read this book in not too long or in small doses. There's not a lot of concrete plot. I mean, we did Timeline last time, which was all plot. This is not like that. These are concepts. Mm-hmm. And so as we go through, we'll kind of tell you the pieces, but I would love to do asides like that because that's what I think makes this book worth reading and the things worth thinking about as you read it.
I agree with you completely.
So as he is walking along, following this river, he tends to follow movement. So follows along this little stream. It says a country maiden is coming towards him, and she speaks rapidly in a low tone, as if talking to herself, but she's conveying important information to him, presumably. She seemed afraid of being observed by some lurking foe. "Trust the oak," said she, "trust the oak and the elm and the great beech. Take care of the birch, for though she is honest, she is too young not to be changeable. But shun the ash and the alder, for the ash is an ogre. You will know him by his thick fingers. And the alder will smother you with her web of hair, if you let her near you at night." All this was uttered without pause or alteration of tone. And then she turns and runs away.
Yeah, she leaves. He doesn't actually get to talk with her.
Who was that?
So much of this is great. You and I grew up literally in the forest.
In the trees.
So trees for me have always been personalities. I think of a maple very different from the way I think of a cedar, very different from the way I think of a pine. If I'm lucky enough to see an oak, I get excited. Willows delight me, and we grew up with a lot of alder. And so it's interesting to me where these recommendations and warnings jive and don't jive with my own personal opinions of trees, because personally I love alder. Mm-hmm. They grow straight and fast, and it was really easy to make very good sticks out of them as a kid. So the alder was wonderful. But in this case, the alder is dangerous. The ash is dangerous. There are other trees that are full on good, but then there are other trees that are somewhere in the middle, like the birch. It's changeable. And so he's starting to learn the rules, or he's at least starting to be told the rules.
Yeah, he doesn't even really think about it. He's like, the meaning will become clear if I need to know. I mean, what a young man just to be like, well, that was weird.
Strange. Well, strange things continue to happen. Actually, this first part isn't so strange because he's walking along and he comes to a cottage. And there's a very kind woman, and she asks him, "Did you meet my daughter?"
He says, "I think I did, actually."
Yeah, she was talking. I don't know what she was saying.
But he asks for food as he's going. This idea of a wandering stranger, a pilgrim, really, who walks around and he asks for food when he goes places. This idea, I think, is very foreign to us. But there's that book. No, I'm going to blank on it. The Pilgrim's Prayer.
The Way of the Pilgrim.
The Way of the Pilgrim, where all he does is walk and pray. And then there's times when people feed him, and this idea of hospitality. That seems far more common, and not just in this book, but in that time period. The idea that people would walk, and if a stranger shows up at your door, you feed them if you're hungry. That's what happens here. But this lady knows some things. She's like, "Oh, you have fairy blood in you." How do you know? They can see it.
Yeah.
The people who know Fairyland can look at this young man and be like, "You have some."
And he starts to think he can see it in her. He looks at this wrinkled old woman, nothing special here, but he sees something about her that he can't explain or express. And again, we're starting to learn the rules. She tells him, yeah, I have to live here because if I'm too long away from Fairyland and don't eat its food, drink its water, I get sick. You, I think it's the same. Although your education, the fact you keep yourself busy, your fairy blood probably isn't as recent as mine. You felt it less than I, but I think it's in you, and that's part of why he is there. She's got wisdom. She's got something to teach and something to tell him. And she also doubles down on the idea that he needs to watch out for the ash.
Yeah. He's like, what do I be afraid of the ash for? Like, what's he going to do? And she doesn't answer the question. There's a lot of avoiding answers to straight questions in Fairyland. I don't think the rules are like that. I think there's something that you have to feel and experience. You can't just say, oh, he's going to hurt you. I've noticed nobody dies in Fairyland. It's not a rule exactly. People get really hurt, and it's not entirely true. But in general, the danger isn't death. It's this idea that there are far worse things than death. Even when somebody dies, if they died well, there's joy. I mean, there's pain with it, but it's joyful. The death part isn't the danger.
That is such a great point. Living well and dying well are what you need to do.
Yeah, so if the answer isn't like, well, he'll kill you, it's hard to answer. So she doesn't, but basically she says he's awake mostly at night. Be careful.
A couple other things about this scene that I love. The house is made of trees. There are 4 oak trees, which we learned from the little girl that we can trust the oak. They make up the corners of the house and then bind together for the roof. It's just I would love to see a well-drawn picture of this, where somebody draws this house made out of the 4 oaks. And this is why they're protected, why the ash isn't going to come near the house, because if it does, the oaks are going to just rip the ash tree apart. So there are protectors and there are villains. There's enemies and those also looking out for the well-being of the inhabitants of Fairyland. So I love the oak trees. The other thing I love is she talks to him about his plans. And he is planning to go out to explore. He feels he needs to do that.
Yeah, he says, I wish to see all that is to be seen, and therefore I should like to start just at sundown. This kid's not afraid of the dark.
Her response to that is telling. You are a bold youth if you have any idea what you are daring, but a rash one if you know nothing about it. And excuse me, but you do not seem to be very well informed about the country and its manners. I think that's such a great line, because the same action can be either very brave or just idiotic. And in this case, he knows nothing. We know he knows nothing. He knows nothing about the way this world works, but he's going to do it. And so by her definition, he is rash. He is not brave. She, though, continues to give him guidance, and we learn things about it because she says, hey, the fairies are up to something tonight. And he realizes that night is the fairies' day, that's where they interact and are about. And that's part of why he goes out at night. And he asks her, well, how do you know? And she's got reasons. Again, there are rules. There are things that can be learned. Besides the look of the trees, the dog there is unhappy. And the eyes and ears of the white rabbit are redder than usual. And he frisks about as if he expected some fun. If the cat were at home, she would have her back up, for the young fairies pull the sparks out of her tail with bramble thorns, and she knows when they are coming. So do I, in another way. So there's these rules. Again, these rules, these flavors, these guides to what is going on in the world.
I like this because he's a young man and he gets tired of the lecture. And he looks at a book. He asks leave to look at the old book that he sees screened in the window. It's a story. I mean, George MacDonald always puts stories inside of stories, but this one is talking about it contained many wondrous tales of Fairyland and olden times and the knights of Arthur's table. It goes on to Galahad and Percival. It describes Sir Percival after his escape from the demon lady. And this becomes important later because story becomes his reality. He lives out these things, and it prompts this idea of King Arthur's knights in Fairyland. It's so great.
I've said repeatedly, Arthur reigns on the borders of Fairyland and his knight's journey into it, and we get their stories. And yeah, this story will be very important because there's a lot of foreshadowing here of what's to come. Broadly speaking, I'll just summarize it briefly. This is Sir Galahad and Sir Percival. For those who know Sir Galahad, he is so good and pure and brave, he's almost boring. He always knows the right thing to do. He always makes the virtuous choice. He is the one who achieves the Grail quest. He's Sir Galahad. He's all that. Sir Percival is also amazing, but a little bit more human. The important part of this story is that he has a moral fall or a near miss, and his armor shows it. So his armor becomes covered with rust. It becomes red and rusty. The physical presentation of the knight is indicative of the moral state of his soul.
It's like a mirror.
Yes. So where Galahad is always shining and bright and pure without ever a squire having to polish anything on him, Percival is covered in rust. And that's about as much of the story as he gets to read.
The other thing that happens at this house that I just personally love, though it's not really important to the plot, I think, is there's a garden. And outside the flowers are singing. And he comes to conclusions about these flowers. And he says, whether all the flowers have fairies, I cannot determine. Any more than I can be sure whether all men and women have souls. These flowers sing at some point about the death of one of them. Because flowers don't last very long. And so death and grief and joy are very integral to Fairyland. And that is a part of it. And they sing this song of grief, I think, about the primrose. Oh, no. Sister Snowdrop died before we were born. I mean, they're remembering their own. But then they run off with this wild laugh. I mean, they are extremely both. It's very confusing, but also very beautiful.
This is the first true passage that stuck with me after reading this for the first time. And you're right, it doesn't really advance the plot. This serves almost as a way of indicating that Anados truly can interact with the fairies. Because the woman in the cottage indicates she's not sure how much he's going to be able to see. Because just being in Fairyland doesn't mean you're going to get to experience everything. There are realities above you. There are realities below you. And depending who you are, what choices you've made, how you're interacting with this, you may not see anything. There may be stuff going by that's incredible that is just going to go right past you. But this lets us know that he can at least interact with the child fairies, with these fairies of the flowers. And I've always loved the idea of the natural order having something spiritual inhabiting it. I love the idea of fairies of water and rock and stone and wood. The idea of a dryad or a naiad or a nereid. There's just something about that that speaks to me. And so the idea that the flowers have a fairy that incorporates them is just beautiful.
It is a primrose who died. I just made sure. And it says one of the other fairies had a part in it. She bit her. Fairyland does not mean innocent. Fairyland does not mean necessarily pure. There is good and evil in Fairyland too. It just looks different. And so even now they're reproaching this little fairy named Pocket. He says, how could you be so naughty? A flower died because of her. I mean, if you think about it, we would kill a flower by picking it once. I mean, that's kind of the fate of a flower. Mm-hmm. But here she says, I will bite you and then you will go away. She bit this primrose. And so that's part of what it's this very fleeting habitation. Like they don't have many years, you know, it's so poignant and lovely, mm-hmm. where it is both sad and joyful at the same time. It's a flower. It's no worse than somebody having picked, you know, a dandelion in the lawn that day. But this little one gets reproached for biting. So there are still rules, but they're different. I mean, you just feel it the whole way through.
Yeah. And he spends time here thinking about, do the flowers die because the fairy leaves? Or does the fairy leave because the flowers die? And he doesn't know. He has his own theories. He thinks he's got a guess which it is. Yeah. But he's very clear he just doesn't know the rules.
The next chapter starts with a reference from the Ballad of Sir Aldingar. I can't even say it. Aldingar. Do you know that one?
No, I don't. but I want to.
I know, I wrote it down.
When Bala is at highest, Bhute is nighest.
What does that mean?
When trouble is at its highest, gain, wealth. I think that's what Bhute means, is near.
So this kid, Anados, it's a very pretentious sounding name, but just know it's the upward path. He's walking a path, but he goes out at night against the advice of this lady who clearly is familiar with Fairyland. He is going, and he has been warned about specific trees, specifically the ash at this point.
Well, this is terrifying. Up to this point, he has been naive and really kind of enjoying Fairyland. There's these goofy little flower fairies. There's this weird girl who's given advice. Apparently oaks are good and something about an alder, but okay, ash. I need to avoid the ash. Well, okay, I can figure that out. And so he just walks through this forest at night. He's been warned about these dangers. And all of a sudden, he starts to sense. I said there are realities above what we can perceive and below what we can perceive. He is starting to sense something that is out to get him. The woman has told him that the Ash's favorite way to kill is to scare people to death. The Ash seems to thrive off fear. She describes it as a goblin, and that he will know it by the knobbly fingers. It's the fingers that he'll know it by. And as he's traveling, he starts to see shadows. He starts to see these things around him. It's a bright moon, and the moon is casting these shadows. And eventually he can't take it anymore. It's just too scary. And he sees these shadows coming by, but he realizes, okay, if that's a shadow, that means it's got to be between me and the moon. And so this always seemed like just an idiotic thing to do to me. But Anados decides, I'm going to lay down, look at the moon, and then I will see what is between the moon and me. And sure enough, it is the thickened, coarse, terrifying fingers of the Ash Goblin that look like they're about to come at his head.
This episode may take us like 10 hours, brother, because I have so much to say.
Worth it.
Okay. The idea of shadows in this book, I think, is very important and multifaceted. I mean, talking about those fractals. So he doesn't even experience the ash tree itself. He is afraid of the shadow. It's not even the real thing. It's a long time before he even sees the real thing and describes the face and how horrible it is. And the shadow of it is enough, in essence, to petrify him, to stop him from even getting away. The idea of it, just this distant, what's another word for shadow? That's all it is. It's this distant shadow, but that is enough on its own. Not even the real thing to keep him where he's at. Mm-hmm. The other thing on his way there, because he's starting to hear voices, and there's good and evil in Fairyland, and there's everything in between. And there's these voices that laugh at him, and he can't see what they are as he's walking along, because he's out there to observe. That's what his role in this is. He's an observer. For a long time, he doesn't do much. I mean, his action to find the ash is to lie down.
Right. You moron. Yeah.
His path in Fairyland would be very different from mine. But the voices say something I think is very important, that say, look at him, look at Anados. They're laughing at him and say, he has begun a story without a beginning, and it will never have any end. Look at him. Like, what a fool. He has started this thing. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just walking along without aim. How do you end that story? If you didn't start with a goal, where are you going to go? Yeah. Very Alice in Wonderland, like any way will get you there, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Because if you don't know where you're going, how would you even get there?
Yeah, it doesn't matter which road you take.
Right? So yes, this ash is truly terrifying, and just the idea that its shadow is enough to petrify him is something. How much fear can cripple us even before it's upon us, even more than the reality of the actual thing. But he is saved, as often happens in Fairyland, because he was warned about the ash, but he was recommended or guided towards
the beach.
I was going to say the birch. I was like, no.
Nope, the beach.
The beach.
Before the beach, though, real quick, I do when he does see the ash, the description, as we said, is horrifying. And he references the vampire is what this looks like. This idea of life without life. And we talked earlier about eyes in like the grandmotherly woman, how the eye speaks so much. Well, this quote here, it says the same thing, but in the other direction. But the most awful of the features were the eyes. These were alive, yet not with life. Alive, yet not with life. Just terrifying. And he is terrified, and it starts to rain, and he's splashing through the mud and running away, and the ash reaches out and is about to get him when he is wrapped in the arms of the beach.
At the same moment, I felt 2 large soft arms thrown round me from behind, and a voice like a woman said, "Do not fear the goblin. He dares not hurt you now." The hand that, now it's not even the shadow, it's the actual hand of the ash that he knows how to identify. It withdraws. He is protected by this beach tree. Getting the beach and the branch mixed up.
I love the beach so much. She is purely admirable and just wonderful. She loves Anados. And not in any sort of creepy way, not for her own gain. She just loves. She views herself as less than him. For he is a man, and I am a beech tree, and I may love him. She has permission to love him, and her love is protection and grace. And she's just so wonderful and is such a picture of this love. But she looks like a woman to Anados.
Yeah, he asks, "Why do you call yourself a beech tree?" "Because I am one." He says, "You are a woman." And she says, "Do you think so?" Like, she's very flattered by this. She dreams of being a woman, but her essence, she is a tree. And this, I think, very much speaks to that idea of longing, which again is a very Lewis sentiment. He spoke much on it. But she longs to be a woman. But even as she is, she can love and protect this man. She doesn't know him, but she does have this outpouring of love, and it is very beautiful. She is so beautiful.
She is. And one of the great themes through all of George MacDonald, and so poignant in Phantastes, is the concept of sorrow, the concept of sadness, and what it can do. Because it can turn people dark and evil and hollow, or it can turn people gentle and kind and loving. Because she talks about a rumor, a legend, a hope that the trees, if they're very good and do what they're supposed to, will someday be born as women in the world of men. And this is what she longs for. And she asks Anados, "Do you think I will be happy?" She says, "I don't know that I will be, because it's usually on nights like this when it's raining and it's dark that I feel the most like this." And he tries to comfort her, but he can't. He talks about how he's known women who aren't happy. But for all that, she wants to be a woman. Even with the sorrow intermingled, there is joy and love in the experience enough to make the sorrow worth it, and the sorrow provides meaning and depth. And again, this can't just be spoken and believed, but when you see it in the actions and the thought and the love of the beech tree, you can believe it and you can feel it, where even sorrow can have an elevating purpose. So good.
And she is a tree. And Anados asks, "What did the horrible ash want with me?" She says, "I'm not quite sure." It's never just like, "Oh, he wants to kill you." It's not as simple as that. Nothing in Fairyland is as simple. It's either extremely simple, like to the point of a flower growing, but is that really simple? Because there is such complexity with it. But she says, "I think he wants to bury you at the foot of his tree." And the man asks, are all ash trees as dreadful? Because this ash tree has a capital. It's his name, the ash tree. And she says, "Oh, no. They're all disagreeable and selfish." And in her mind, because she's always thinking forward to being the day when she'll be a woman, what horrid men they will make. There will still be good men, bad men, good women, bad women. But this ash tree, has a hole in his heart that nobody knows of but one or two. And he's always trying to fill it up. but he can't. He doesn't know how to fill up the hole in his heart. And Anados thanks her. How kind of you to save me. And in essence, she tells him, I will do what I can. But she gives him advice. A lot of people give him advice. He never listens.
Come on, Anados. Come on.
She says, there are some in the wood more like me, who look like me, but I can't protect you from them. So he has to be aware. Only if you see any of them very beautiful, try to walk around them. Mm-hmm. The more beautiful they are, the more you should be on your guard. He's like, okay, got it.
The beech tree does one more thing. She tells Anados, I can protect you from some of these things, like the ash, but you need to cut my hair. Mm. He says, you men always have cutting things about you, don't you? He does. Yes. He's got a knife. And so she insists that he cut a length of her hair and tie it around him as a belt, as a girdle of beech leaves. And at first he resists and says, no, your hair is beautiful. I don't want to cut your hair. I don't want to harm you. And she says, oh, no, it'll be long enough before it's needed again. You really need to do this. It hurts her when he cuts it. She shudders with pain. She sacrifices for Anados. She gives of herself out of love. Yeah. And he leaves her with the girdle. And as he's walking away, he hears her words. And again, I may love him. I may love him. For he is a man, and I am only a beech tree. She is just such a great character. I love the beech tree.
Yeah. And I guess we kind of belittled George MacDonald's poetry before, but I love her song, actually. So he does this short poetry that I'll just read it because even if you don't love it, I do. I saw thee ne'er before, I see thee nevermore, but love and help and pain, beautiful one, have made thee mine till all my years are done. And then she continues singing with her arms around him. She's a tree and a woman at the same time. She sings him the seasons. She sings him emotions, the things we feel when the seasons change. She sings that to him, not in words, but in feeling. And that is what George MacDonald does. And it's amazing. Mm. Who can do that? Nobody. It's so beautiful.
This is one of the first places, too, this is probably worth mentioning, where we get to experience the power of song. What song can do in Fairyland often has far more power than simple words or actions. Song can do a lot and will do a lot as the story progresses.
That is a very good point. I will just it doesn't even ruin it. Anados learns to sing and does great good with it. The beech tree started his song. Yes. I hadn't put that together. Yes. Oh, she sings to him first. So he says that even though he's unwilling, because he too has a piece of him that loves this beech tree, but he's unwilling, but it's time to go. He says, my unfinished story urged me on. I must act and wander. That is his whole mission in this book, acting, wandering. And then I believe he learns to wonder. I mean, he does learn, but his role is to go.
And he does go. He does leave, and he does wander. And this is where we come upon the Marble Lady. This is so good. Are you familiar with the story of Pygmalion?
Vaguely.
Pygmalion is an ancient Greek story. There's different versions of it. Where I first came across it was in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Ovid was, of course, a great Roman poet. His Metamorphoses is a collection of lots and lots of different fairy tales and stories and tales from ancient Greece. In Book 10 of the Metamorphoses, we get Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a man who vowed celibacy. He did not want to have anything to do with women, for the most part because he was disgusted by them. He was surrounded by all these temple prostitutes and all these just disturbing women, and frankly, the Greeks didn't like women very much anyway, and so he just says, nope, not going to do it. And so he retires to a cave, a grotto, where he starts sculpting. And he ends up sculpting the woman. The most beautiful woman, the perfect woman. And according to this story, he prays to Aphrodite, who grants that the statue comes to life, and near as we can tell, they live happily ever after. There are other versions of the story where they don't, where it goes bad, but this is the story of Pygmalion, where a craftsman creates a statue and it comes to life.
The unhappy ending seems more likely for a Greek story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with the happy one.
Well, we're going to settle with that for now. Yeah. Well, and how often does Aphrodite lead to good things happening?
Yeah.
Not often. Usually that's problematic. But here we see him journeying through the forest, and he comes across a cave, and he comes across what looks to be just a chunk of rock. He has, cutting things with him, and so he starts to scrape the moss off the rock, and he finds that it's not just a rock. It's actually more like alabaster. He's able to scrape it. But the more he scrapes, the more he clears it, the more he sees that, oh, this is a statue. And this is a woman, and a beautiful woman. He can't see her full face. The hair is kind of over her eyes, and the hand is under her cheek. But he now is very careful not to scrape the statue, and he clears off the rest of the moss. And he tries to come up with the idea of, well, how do I bring this to life? This is Fairyland. Maybe I can bring this to life. Again, the rules are different. And so he remembers some old stories. He remembers, well, there's stories where if you kiss something, it wakes up.
Yeah, he thinks of Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. He tries those.
Yeah, doesn't work.
No. Mm-mm.
But this is where song comes upon him. And what I want to say about this is how important it is to know that the song does not come from him. He says that before he entered Fairyland, he never really was able to sing. He said he had a voice and he had a true sense of sound, but the one could never please the other. He could never sing in a way that made him happy. But he's not producing this. This song comes upon him, and it's almost like he's channeling this magic of Fairyland. Now, he's important in that. It is his voice and his expression and his choice to do it. But it's a gift. It's all a gift. And this gift he utters through song, and he brings the statue to life.
It is spurred by a story because he thinks of Orpheus.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, and Orpheus in Greek mythology was the musician, can you call him a bard? I mean, he had the song. Sleeping Beauty didn't work. Orpheus, let's give that a try. And it does work.
As he frees her, though, as he wakes her from this couch, she doesn't stay. She is whisked away because this is Fairyland. So she goes out into the night and he chases after her. And this then moves us into the next chapter. And there's so much important that happens in the next chapter.
I like this phrase. He says, I gazed after her in a kind of despair, found, freed, lost. This beautiful woman that he has freed. He feels some possession of her, responsibility for her. She's alone out in the forest, so he goes to seek after her. I do think this whole segment, as he's wandering around and he finds the trees and really he finds a glade and all these things, such an echo of Old Man Willow in The Fellowship of the Ring, where they travel along the river. And I sense a lot of like Tolkien borrowing in this segment where they're just traveling along and the trees are part of it. I mean, clearly Tolkien read George MacDonald too.
He did.
In this next chapter, though, I mean, there's so much in these chapters.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh. He meets a knight with rusty red armor.
And the knight is going to pass him by because this knight is in despair. His head is lowered. He's sad. He clearly has been defeated in some way. And Anados is critical because he's a cocky little guy. And he's like, well, it doesn't, befit a noble knight to be downcast just because he's been beaten with spears or things like that. Well, the knight notices Anados and he realizes he has to warn him. And he asks Anados, have you heard of the story of Sir Percival and the Maiden of the Alder Tree? This was the book that Anados was reading in the cottage but didn't get to the end of. In part I have, said I, for yesterday at the entrance of this forest I found in a cottage the volume where it is recorded. Then take heed, he rejoined. Again, he's getting warnings. For see my armor? I put it off, and as it befell to him, so it has befallen to me. I that was proud am humble now, yet is she terribly beautiful. Beware. But then the knight makes another statement. Never, he added, raising his head, shall this armor be furbished but by the blows of knightly encounter, until the last speck has disappeared from every spot where the battle axe and sword of evildoers or noble foes might fall, when I shall again lift my head and say to my squire, do thy duty once more and make this armor shine. So this knight has fallen. He has made a mistake like Sir Percival. But like Sir Percival, he is not going to dwell on it, and he is going to make it right. He is going to set out to do knightly deeds. And he won't even let a squire shine his armor. He is going to let the axes of the enemy take the rust off of it. And he rides away, and Anados thinks he's good. All right, I got another warning.
Yeah, he's like, surely I'll be on my guard, and I am fully resolved I shall not be ensnared by any beauty, however beautiful, as he follows this mysterious, beautiful woman that he just helped escape from Marble. Surely that can't have any relevance.
How does that work out for him?
I mean, not great. To sum up.
It was singing that woke the woman of the marble. And so he does continue to sing as he goes through the forest. And as he sings, he comes across a beautiful woman who claims to be his lady.
He hears a laugh because he's looking for her. He's worried about her. He wants to help protect her in the forest at night. And yeah, this low, delicious laugh. It says it was not the laugh of one who would not be heard. It's meant to be heard, but the laugh of one who has just received something long and patiently desired, a laugh that ends in a low musical moan. I mean, there is clear warning here for this man, and he just doesn't regard it whatsoever.
If only others had warned him.
Truly. He says, it is my white lady. He's on board. Here she is.
And she invites him to her grotto, to her home. But she is a big tease because her words, her look, everything is very inviting. But she won't let him get near him, and specifically, she won't let him get behind her.
She's always facing towards him. Her face always fully towards me. So she's always actually literally backing away from him or sideways to him. And he touches her hand, I think, at one point, and it's cold. And he's like, that must be the marble. You know, she came from Marble. She's still cold. But she takes him to this other cave. He follows her in. And she says, you go first. I will follow you. And he goes into this cave. And there's a rose lamp, brother.
This is interesting. And as I said before, I feel almost impertinent actually trying to do this book in a podcast because there is so much of it I don't understand. And I think there's levels that we could reach to if I yet understood it better. We know that George MacDonald does things with Rose. The Rose Fire is one of the most beautiful parts of The Princess and the Goblin and The Princess and Curdie. In that setting, this rose is a thing of great beauty. It's a thing of truth and of life and of the divine. In this setting, though, the rose light makes him uncomfortable. And I think part of it, I've thought about this, and I think what it is goes back to the idea of the shadow and the reality. The Rose Fire was reality in the grandmother's room. It was the true. Here we have a lamp. We have a shadow that gives a rose hue, but it is not good like the Rose Fire. And he even gets a sense of this because the woman kind of slides into the cave and the rose light shines through her. And he says that even then, he thought that the rose pink tinge in her eyes was concerning.
I just got a glimpse way back, I think, our first real episode, Photogen and Nycteris. Nycteris, the woman who only lives at night, really. She has a lamp. And it is almost a mockery. She doesn't know it, but it's given to her almost as this mockery of the real thing, of the moon. This is a mockery of a true rose fire, the real thing. And yeah, even the lamp itself kind of has this twisting to it. But he doesn't listen to those warnings over and over at the beginning. Anados doesn't listen to warning or guidance. He's like, I got it. I mean, the kid's got some ego. What kid doesn't, truly? At 21. But I think he goes to sleep.
He
There's
does.
this hypnotic beauty. So in the sense that he's already in this cave, there is a hypnotic aspect to it. But when he wakes up, because he's not too worried, the beech tree gave him her girdle, the girdle of her hair that was so lovingly given. He is protected in great measure from the ash tree. He was warned about the ash tree. Okay, I'm good. He was also warned about the alder tree. And he forgot about that one, I guess, because when he wakes up, her back, the woman's back is to him, and it's not the same. And it is grotesque. This is the alder tree. She too is evil, and she's tearing the hair, the girdle that the beech tree lovingly gave him. She's ripping it apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's very just graphically painful.
And after this, she doesn't care if he sees his back.
Her back.
She has done what she came to do, and she calls to her friend, and she delivers him to the ash tree.
I love this. The ash bent his Gorgon head. I mean, you mentioned the Gorgon in our monster mashup. The Gorgon, that's Medusa. And he enters the cave. And Anados is frozen. He says, I could not stir. The ash draws near. And then he hears in the distance this dull, heavy blow of an axe echoed through the wood. We get the idea that knight, the knight who gave Anados warning, he's not even there, but he's helping him. He is chopping at this ash tree, and the ash tree flees. He's got bigger priorities. His tree's being cut down.
That is a knightly deed, and he is engaged with it. And Anados is saved once again. I enjoy the opening quote from the next chapter. This is another ballad. And again, this is Middle English, so this will sound a little weird, but it's Fix on, my men, Sir Andrew saith, a little am a hurt, but yet not slain. He but lay a downa and blade a while, and then it'll rise and factagana. Fight on, my men, Sir Andrew says, a little I'm hurt, but yet not slain. I'll but lie down and bleed a while, and then I'll rise and fight again.
Very good. The Ballad of Sir Andrew Barton. Do you know that one?
I don't.
I added it to my list too.
MacDonald read so much.
I know.
So much.
I know. All right. So this guy who has now been beguiled by an evil woman after being warned and very
repeatedly
cocksure of himself, finally is doing some thinking as he's walking through Fairyland. He says, I walked listlessly along. What distressed me most, more even than my own folly, was the perplexing question. And this is a big MacDonald question. How can beauty and ugliness dwell so near? The alder was beautiful. She was so beautiful. How could something so beautiful be all evil?
And this is a question for which there is no answer. And we have been asking this question ever since. Even, let me reference the original Star Trek series. I believe the episode is entitled, Is There No Truth in Beauty? Where this hideously ugly alien, where to gaze upon it is to generate madness, but its thoughts are sublime and wonderful and beautiful. And of course, hijinks ensue. It's a great episode. Watch it. But again, the question gets asked. Is there nothing of value? Is there no truth in beauty? In Greek, the words are the same. Kalos is good, true, and beautiful. It's the same word. But in this case, clearly, it's not the same.
I didn't know that. How do you spell that? Kalos.
Kalos would be the English iteration.
That is a phrase now. And I actually tried to go find the origin of it because people use it. What's good and true and beautiful? Kalos. That's a Greek term. How do you separate them? I mean, the beech tree, who was beautiful, warned him. Any who are beautiful, walk wide around them.
His fairy grandmother was beautiful.
Yeah. And as he's walking, he doesn't answer the question, but he finds another cottage. And this very lovely woman, very maternal. She's like, my poor boy, you have come from the wood. Were you in it last night? She too knows there is danger to being in the wood of Fairyland at night. like he was warned about, but still. And so there's this family who lives in Fairyland. What's interesting is she's married to, what is he, a farmer? She's married to a man who lives in Fairyland, but he doesn't see anything unnatural. He does not have fairy blood. What is it with Uncle Andrew? Depends on who you are and where you're standing. He's standing in Fairyland, just like Uncle Andrew and the Magician's Nephew. He's standing in the first moments of Narnia. But who he is, he doesn't see it.
This family is such a wonderful picture because the mother is deeply imbued with fairy. She knows what's going on with the wood. She knows what's around it. The daughter is deeply imbued with fairy. The husband, not at all. The woman says he could have spent the entire night in the forest last night and wouldn't have noticed a thing. But she emphasizes his goodness. And he's always laughing when he talks. And you get the sense, or at least I do, that this is sincere. That he is truly a good man. But there's another person in the house, and that's the son. And the son mimics the father's laughter, but with a sneer. There's contempt. There's no contempt from the father. He just doesn't believe in any of it. The son is still scared of it. And there's a sneer to his laughter. And I think that picture, that vignette of the four of them, really speaks a lot to the way we as humans interact with the other, and Fairyland in particular. And this is so powerful, the effect these different individuals have on Anados, that for a while when he's talking to the father, he stops believing in Fairyland, despite everything he's been through. But I love this line. But the next moment, my eye fell upon a little girl who was sitting on the chimney corner with a little book upon her knee, from which she had apparently just looked up to fix great inquiring eyes on me. I believed in Fairyland again.
Yeah, just looking at this little girl who knows. She knows.
He looked into her eyes.
Yeah, each of them is so interesting. The father, who doesn't experience Fairyland for what it is, in essence, he reminds me so much of Tom Bombadil in The Fellowship. He's always laughing. He's very joyful, but it doesn't impact him. Just like the ring doesn't impact Bombadil. I understand there are differences. You're looking at me skeptically. I can see a parallel.
No, I just hadn't thought about it before. Again, it's the beauty of this book is that there are so many of these connections that you could spend a lifetime thinking about. And so I think that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to think about it more.
He's not the same, but he is amidst Fairyland, but he's not impacted by it. He enjoys his life despite it and around it and through it, but it doesn't touch him. It has no hold on him. And yeah, you're right. The son has this skepticism, the cynicism of it, but he must have some understanding because of what happens next. But I want to close out on this this question that Anados had about the idea of beauty and evil going together, because the mom, the matron, has some thoughts on it, because he asks her, "How can you tell me how it is that she could be so beautiful without any heart at all, without any place even for a heart to live in?" Because he sees the alder tree from behind. There's no spot for a heart to even be. She's empty. She's hollow. And the mom answers quite honestly, I think. She says, "I can't quite tell, but I do think she tries to be beautiful, to present herself. But I think this is the good part. The chief thing that makes her beautiful is this, that although she loves no man, she loves the love of any man. And when she finds one in her power, her desire to bewitch him and gain his love, not for the sake of love, but just for the awareness of her own beauty, that's what makes her lovely. It's a self-destructive beauty, and it's constantly wearing away. It won't last forever." And so this idea that beauty and evil can go together, it's true, but only for a while. And so I do think the mom here gives him some great comfort. And honestly, the dad does too. Because for a while, he forgets Fairyland.
He's able to sleep. He
Yes.
sleeps on the side of the house pointed away from the danger, the troubles, the interesting things, and he rests and he sleeps. There's several other things that happen in this house, and I'll skip over these, but one of the things George MacDonald does a great job of doing is referencing other stories, the great web of story. And there's several he brings up here, but 3 in particular. She is reading a book. The little girl is reading a book, The History of Graciosa and Percinet. It's a fun story. This comes out of 17th century France, but it became popular when Andrew Lang published it in the Red Fairy book. We've talked about the Blue Fairy book, and we've mentioned that he did others. This is in the Red Fairy book. It's a quick read, and it's fun, and it's very good, and all about a fairy prince and a cursed princess, and it's really, really good. He also mentions Hop o' My Thumb, which has been a fun story that we've talked about in the past. I think Hop o' My Thumb is one of the guiding stories behind The Princess and the Goblin. And then the other one is The White Cat. The White Cat is another one that shows up in the Blue Fairy book, and they actually indicate that the mother in this cottage is descended from the princess of the White Cat. It's a great story. I encourage you to read it. Lang's fairy books are just fantastic. The blue one is where I would start, but they're all good.
The mom here warns him against the house of the ogre. And she says, my son will show you onto another path, which will join the first beyond it. And here, Anados is trying to listen, trying to take good advice. Okay. The son, who we've said is critical of Fairyland.
Contemptuous, I would say.
He does take him, and they do not bond. And he walks him down a path. Clearly, this path actually goes directly to the ogre's house. There is no other question about it. The son actually takes him straight there.
Can I read the next chapter heading? The chapter headings are so fun.
It's true. And this one is from Faust, which we did talk about briefly. When did we talk about it, brother? After the monster mashup, because we mentioned Faust. The Deal with the Devil. That's Faust.
Yeah, so this quote is from Goethe, and it's
Mephistopheles.
Mephistopheles in Faust. I am part of the part which at first was the whole. Mephistopheles is the devil. That should give you an indication of where this chapter is going. This, in so many ways, is the pivotal chapter of the entire book, The House of the Ogre.
Here we see a single tall cypress tree. And that was not in the first guidance at all. A cypress tree.
Yeah, is that good? Is that bad? Can I trust it? Can I not trust it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
He's alone now. The boy had left him. The son had left him. And so he kind of peeks in, and there's this hallway, and there's a woman reading. And it says, as he draws closer, that she began to read aloud. And it says, she read something like this. As darkness had no beginning, neither will it have an end. So then is it eternal. And she goes on from there about the negation of alt else. Aught else is its affirmation. Where the light cannot come, there abideth the darkness. It's like a dark version of Genesis. It goes on from there. It is Genesis, but evil. Instead of light, there is dark.
I have wondered ever since I read this for the first time whether George MacDonald made this up or whether this came from somewhere. I now know the answer. I was able to find it. This came from somewhere. This is a direct quote from The Wife of Usher's Well. This comes out of Minstrelsy of the Scottish Border. So these are Scottish ballads and songs. And this ballad is grim, not surprising given what we read in here. It's a mother whose 3 sons have drowned at sea, and they return as ghosts to visit her. And she's so excited because they're coming back, but she can't do anything for them. They're dead. They can't eat the food she prepares. They can't eat the feast. She can't let them go. It is horrifically sorrowful. And so what I got out of this, even without knowing the source, was that this is words of despair. Originally, I thought this was a Nietzsche quote because it has that feel and that flavor. And it definitely has that feel and that flavor of just utter despair and darkness. And she's reading it the way you and I would read the Bible, as if to gain truth from it.
As he walks in, he goes from kind of interested to see what kind of place it is to compelled. There's this compulsion on him to draw forward. And it says, in one corner was a door. It's apparently a cupboard in the wall, which might lead to a room beyond. And still an irresistible desire made me enter the building and urged me. I must open that door and see what was beyond it. Then the woman spoke without lifting her head or looking at me. You had better not open that door. This was uttered quite quietly, and she went on with her reading, partly in silence, partly aloud. Anados opens the door. I feel that even if people reading about darkness give you advice in Fairyland, it might be good to not open the door. He does it anyway.
Big mistake. At first, though, it's kind of anticlimactic. He opens the door and it just looks like a cupboard, right? Extra stores, whatever her food is, there's not much there. But then, in this dreamlike way that exists in Fairyland, there's also distance. He's able to see into the distance, and he sees a shape, a dark shape, running at him. And it comes and runs straight at him, and is getting bigger and nearer and closer, and he even steps aside to try and let it go by. "Where is he?" I said in some alarm to the woman, who still sat reading. "There, on the floor, behind you," she said, pointing with her arm half outstretched, but not lifting her eyes. I turned and looked, but saw nothing. Then, with a feeling that there was yet something behind me, I looked around over my shoulder, and there on the ground lay a black shadow the size of a man. It was so dark that I could see it in the dim light of the lamp, which shone full upon it, apparently without thinning at all the intensity of its hue. "I told you," said the woman, "you had better not look into that closet."
Yes, what is it? With a growing sense of horror. It is only your shadow that has found you. Everybody's shadow is ranging up and down looking for him. I believe you call it by a different name in your world. Yours has found you, as every person's is almost certain to do when you look into that closet. This woman is the ogre. And like I said earlier, the danger often in Fairyland is not death. It's something worse. This is his dark self that is now physically attached to him. And not just attached, but visible and present all the time.
And it interacts with him, and it interacts with the world around him. It interacts with everything he does, everything he touches, tastes, sees. It is darkness. And that question of what exactly is this shadow is something that we'll talk about more, I'm sure, as the story goes on. But, it's terrifying and it's horrific. And he's got it now. It is attached to him. And what we spend the next several chapters exploring is, what does this mean? And what does this shadow do?
Yeah, because it doesn't actually tend to touch things or move things, although it changes how he sees everything. It says, everything henceforward existed for me in its relation to my attendant. His shadow following him starts to move in front of him, and it changes how he sees things. He can see the flowers. He can see Fairyland. He can see all the beautiful things. But now they are seen through this. It's more than a film. This twisting darkness of his dark self. And suddenly it's all broken. It's all ugly. Even things he didn't even mean to do to hurt someone suddenly happen.
Mm-hmm. In so many ways, I think the shadow is more than this, but it incorporates things like cynicism, and especially a cynical worldview and distrust. And it's just so good. But the best way to understand it, I think, is to walk through the stories. He's walking along the path and he comes across a fairy child. And he makes it a point that this is a fairy child with two toys, wondrous toys. The one was the tube through which the fairy-gifted poet looks when he beholds the same thing everywhere. The other, that through which he looks when he combines into new forms of loveliness, those images of beauty which his own choice has gathered from all regions wherein he has traveled. That is beautiful. The thought of the fairy-gifted poet and just this concept of these lenses that you can look. And just the looking is magical. And what that can turn into poetry, That is beautiful. And that's, 2 sentences here describing this thing of just such wonder and delight that I would just love to see it and to be a part of it. But then the shadow comes. His shadow comes around it. And all of a sudden, this boy is common. This is nothing special. And those toys, they're just a magnifying glass and a kaleidoscope. Nothing special. Nothing magic. Nothing of fairy. He's losing the wonder, the beauty, the goodness, the value of fairy because he can now see it and must see it through his darkened self. What a tragedy.
Yeah.
What a loss.
I wrote new dimmed eyes. I mean, he goes from seeing, even imperfectly and ignoring guidance, the wonder of it all, wondering and wandering, to just, oh, it's just common. That's all this is. It's just the rain. It's just the flowers. It's just the trees. What a loss. In essence, he loses the magic. He loses the love of things.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all dark. It's all dim.
And it keeps getting worse. He meets the knight, the good knight with the rusty armor that has saved him from the ash. His armor is now much brighter. There's still some rust on it, but he has engaged with knightly deeds, and he is now purer than when he fell. But he can't trust him. The shadow comes in between. This knight, this noble, this man that we know is good, he can't be a part of that anymore. He can't see him, can't trust him.
Anados says, this is better. I've done away with all appearances. I will dare to behold things as they are, and I will live in a waste instead of a paradise. I will live knowing where I live. He tries to explain this like it's good. This is better for me. I see reality now. But then something happens that shocks him back into it.
And even with that paragraph, that's the bottom of the paragraph. At the top of the paragraph, he knows this isn't good.
Yeah.
Because it starts with, but the most dreadful thing of all. The most dreadful thing of all was that I now began to feel something like satisfaction in the presence of the shadow. I began to be rather vain of my attendant, saying to myself, in a land like this with so many illusions everywhere, I need his aid to disenchant the things around me. Yeah. That's just, it is heartbreaking.
But he continues traveling, and one bright noon, a girl joins him, and she has this globe. I love this girl. She came along singing and dancing, happy as a child, though she seemed almost a woman. But in her hands, she carries this just clear globe, purest crystal. And he says it seems her plaything and her greatest treasure. And this is a funny thing, the globe. Tell me, what do you think of the globe?
Let's read a few more of the words that I want to talk about this, because I said the flower garden was the first thing that I remembered. This passage is the second thing that I have never been able to forget. At one moment, you would have thought her utterly careless of it, and at another, overwhelmed with anxiety for its safety. But I believe she was taking care of it all this time, perhaps not least when least occupied about it. It's this shining, magical crystal globe. She lets him touch it. He puts a finger on it, and it hums. There's music coming from it. But she doesn't let him touch it long, and she keeps it safe. I think this globe is innocence. This is her innocence. This is this thing that she delights in and loves. It makes her beautiful, and it brings beauty to the world around her, but it's something that's fragile. It's something that can be taken. It's something that can be broken. It's something that can be stolen. It's something she can throw away. It's something she can lose. It's something she treasures but doesn't always know she treasures it. I've always thought this was her innocence. And that makes what happens next darker and blacker, and it makes me hate Anados.
The shadow. The dark self of Anados, surely. The shadow comes around. It says it glided round and enwrapped the maiden. It could not change her. Okay, there are things above and beyond inside of Fairyland that can't be touched by darkness. And she's one of them. But she had warned Anados, you can touch it, or if you do, be very gentle. Okay, and then it makes that humming sound. Well, here, his dark self is in front of him. And he touches it, and he pushes it, and he squeezes it, and it breaks.
And I think the key here, yes, the shadow enwraps it, comes around, but it is Anados that grabs this and doesn't let it go.
Mm-hmm.
He shatters her globe. It falls to pieces, and she wails and cries out, "You have broken my globe. You have broken my globe." And he says this voice has haunted him for the rest of his life. This woman weeping, "You have broken my globe. You have taken my innocence." And exactly what that means, again, there are levels here. I think you could take this in a lot of different ways. But what a beautiful way George MacDonald has shown something terrible that you could read to a child, but also can represent something heinous and just hideous and dark. And so Anados has no excuse for this, because even if the shadow was involved, he was the one who refused to let go of the globe until it shattered. This almost ruined this book for me, this chapter. It doesn't, and we'll get to that, but it almost did.
Like I said, he writes the things that are felt, that are beyond words. This, for Anados, is regret. He can't fix it. He broke it, and he chose to break it and break her. And she runs away wailing. And it's not even just the tears. This is a deep hurt. She will not forget. And he did it. I mean, regret. How do you write regret? Well, you use a crystal globe.
Yeah. A little girl dancing with a globe.
Oh my gosh, it just gets me.
I feel this one so deeply. There's one other scene in this chapter, and again, this whole thing is all about talking about the effects of his shadow. And the next one is really kind of funny, where he's in this village where there's some pretty girls. But the closer he gets to them, the shadow comes in between, and they become hideous. So the further away, the more beautiful everyone is. But again, the closer he gets, just ugly, hideous, and monstrous. And they think this is hilarious. Again, there seems to be a cynicism, right? A skepticism, a unwillingness to accept or believe beauty or goodness in anything or anybody around him. Could you be more alone? I don't think so. This is hell. This is a turning inside oneself to where you can't interact with the natural world or even with other people. And it is heartbreaking.
It's a personal hell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it is his specifically. This one is designed for him, and he has chosen his part in it, being complicit in it, and it's following him around everywhere. And he hates it, but it's attached to him. And as he's going, he is feeling low. I mean, this is a low for him. He finds a river. He's still wandering. That is just part of the book. He is compelled forward. He finds a little boat. And this, I love every bit of it. He falls down in this boat. He's still alone, but now there is no other interaction. It's just him and his shadow lying in this boat. But he's not paying attention to the shadow. Here is this deep discourse on reflections.
Yes, I'm so glad you love this. Go on.
I do love that. I even put a little heart in my annotations here. Why are all reflections lovelier than what we call the reality? They're not so grand or so strong, it may be, but always lovelier. He's talking about the reflection of the surroundings and the moon in the river. There is something about a reflection, and this ties into this book with his idea of memories and how we are shaped not just by the reflections of things, but also by the memories of things. Think of Sir Percival with his armor. That's a mirror. There's a ton about reflections in this and how we are impacted by them, but we also manipulate them by our choices. But here where he is suffering, and he was part of that suffering, he's made it happen. It is very lovely in the reflections of the river.
It is so beautiful. And what is Fairyland but a reflection of our lives? Why is it so lovely? Not as strong, but lovelier. Yeah, again, fractally true. Every level that you can go with this is just beautiful, and it leads you to higher and lower orders of thought. And I totally agree. And that line, I still believe all mirrors are magic mirrors.
I was just going to tell you, that is my favorite line from this whole book. All mirrors are magic mirrors. What comes after is the commonest room is a room in a poem. When I turn to the glass, to a looking glass, when you look in the mirror and look back at the room behind you, suddenly it's poetry.
So good. Anados is in a hard spot right now, but he's continuing to journey through Fairyland on this boat in the water, and it leads him someplace. And I got so excited when this happened. When he bumps up to the Fairy Palace. This is the home of the Queen of Fairyland, and it just thrills me. I love this.
So have you read, I assume you had, The Fairy Queen by
yes.
Spencer?
Oh, yes.
And so is that mostly poetry? I have not read that one.
Yeah, it's Middle English. It's written more or less in verse. Yeah.
The idea of Middle English intimidates me, which is perhaps why I have not picked it up. Like, do you see echoes of that in this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You can't talk about a fairy queen without thinking of the fairy queen.
That makes sense. So I just love this passage. It says, as he's floating along the river and coming up to the fairy palace, the palace of the queen, as in all sweetest music, because he hears this music and song as he travels along, a tinge of sadness was in every note. Nor do we know how much of the pleasures even of life we owe to intermingled sorrows. Joy cannot unfold the deepest truths, although deepest truth must be deepest joy. That is wonderful. Let me say again. Deepest truth must be deepest joy, but intermingled sorrow is an integral part of it. I think you could think about that forever.
That line specifically was a gift to me from our cousin one Christmas.
Really?
Erica wrote that out.
Hey!
And framed it for me, and it is by my bed.
Hi, Eric. We love you. Thank you for that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
By my bed, because it's so beautiful, and I think so true. All right, can we talk about the Fairy Palace? I love the Fairy Palace because he walks in and it is just magical. We talked about the fact that there are realities above what he can perceive. The Fairy Queen is the top. He never meets her. He has not grown to where he can even perceive her existence. But she seems to care for him, and she serves him. And the fairies about the palace serve him, most of which he never sees. There are invisible hands that feed him, that clothe him, that help him, that guide him. He is walking and he comes across a chamber door, and on the door is written, "The Chamber of Sir Anados." He is not a knight. He has no right to this title, and he knows it. But he goes in, and it is literally his room. The queen is treating him as a knight. They give him new clothes that are exactly what he would wear if he got the choice, and then he is given freedom to explore the palace. And in this palace, his shadow is not gone, but it doesn't really dare to show itself. It is smaller. It is hidden. There is a greater power here that restrains the darkness within him. And there's all sorts of these fun little things that happen. There is a swimming basin. It is a swimming pool. That's it, right? Marble around it is beautiful, it's gorgeous, like everything. But he dives into it, and he is immediately in an ocean. He sees seaweed. He sees coral reefs. He sees mermaids. He is somewhere else. He assumes he's magically been transported. He could swim forever under the water. But then he comes up, and he's back in the pool. He's back. He has never left the fairy palace. There's this magic about this place, this wonder, and George MacDonald does such a good job of describing it. And then eventually, I think it's on the third day, he finds the library.
There are a lot of details about the fairy palace. So I'll let you talk about the library. I'll tell you what I like is that even when the moon is set and the sun is not yet up, it is lit by a second reflex from the sun of other lands. There is a bridging to other worlds and other times in this palace. And his room that you mentioned, that's for him, for a future him, for who he's going to be, is personal. Just like his shadow is personal to him and darkens his personal experience and choices, this place is personal to him, but towards the light, toward the positive. He is going to be Sir Anados, and it is a higher power.
It's so good. So good.
It reminds me truly, I will say it now, although it's true later too, of a line from Leaf by Niggle. Because I think the Sir Anados, that his name in silver letters on an ebony door, which is just beautiful detail, is Sir Anados from Leaf by Niggle. Despite all his choices, before and to come, things could have been different, but they could not have been better.
Yes.
He doesn't meet the Fairy Queen. He doesn't grow to that level. That's not his path, and he still will become Sir Anados. And that is confirmed now.
Yeah. So good. One of the things that people struggle with George MacDonald in general and Phantastes in particular is how it seems to jump around all over the place. Well, that's about to get worse.
That's true.
People read this and think, what just happened? And in fact, some of these are excerpted from this work and published on their own. I have known people who have never touched Phantastes, but have heard some of these following stories. I promise not to spend forever on these, although I want to.
Yeah, we could do Cosmo in a whole separate episode.
We'll briefly go through some of these, but I want to talk about the library, and so I'm going to read here. One peculiarity of these books, or at least most of those I looked into, I must make a somewhat vain attempt to describe. If, for instance, it was a book of metaphysics I opened, I had scarcely read 2 pages before I seemed to myself to be pondering over discovered truth, and constructing the intellectual machine whereby to communicate the discovery to my fellow men. With some books, however, of this nature, it seemed rather as if the process was removed yet a great way further back, and I was trying to find the root of a manifestation, the spiritual truth whence material vision sprang. What he is trying to describe in these books is that they become reality. If it's a story, he is the character in the story. If it's mathematics, he is this higher level of the form of mathematics. It is just gorgeous. Really, what it reminds me of is, of course, the Addams Family. When they open their books. Yeah. The sun also rises, and he's sunning himself on the book.
I had not put that together.
Yeah, the stories are real. They're alive and full. And he goes into 2 of them at some length.
Yeah, he says, I am the chief actor in each story. Doesn't matter what kind it is. Mine was the whole story. It becomes his while he's in it. What a fantastic library. Oh my gosh.
I love everything about this. The first story is beautiful, but it's more beautiful in the sense of description than of plot. It's not really a story in that way, but it's basically sci-fi. It describes another world that he gets to journey to, and he's at this world, and it is gorgeous because the men are men and the women are women, but the women have wings.
Instead of arms.
Instead of arms. These full, beautiful colored wings. And it gets even better because you can tell when the woman was born by the color of the wings. Each season had its own color. But kind of like astrology, there's even more to it than that. Because depending on the weather, the point in the season, where they're found, all these things, there are just incredible color combinations and beauty that go with the wings. But it gets even crazier, because this is what George MacDonald does. People aren't born in that world the way we're born in this world. Babies are found in the forest, and the women go and seek them. and then they raise them, and the wings are colored based off of when and where they're found. And he obliquely references stories that happen on this, and he talks about conversations that the people of that world have with him, where he tries to describe the way things go on Earth a little shyly, and kind of like the beech tree, where there's this sense that beech trees will become humans. There's this sense that when the people in this world die, they wake up in our world as humans. And it is gorgeous is the word that keeps going through my head. I think it is lovely. But again, it's not really a story I can tell. It's a picture that he paints with words.
He's talking about these people, and it says, the sign or cause of their coming death is an indescribable longing for something, they know not what, which seizes them and drives them into solitude, consuming them within until the body fails. And then the idea is, I think this is his picture of reincarnation, where they exist as something in this other beautiful world, but there isn't love between two people. And so when the desire and longing for that kind of intimacy happens, they die, but they wake up in a world where that can be consummated.
And I love that, but it's not reincarnation in the idea of this cycle that just repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's reincarnation with the idea of an ever-ascending ladder of reality and love. Because this is absolutely what he believed. This life, for him, was a beginning. And I think we talked in the Great Divorce episode about his book plate with the old man going into the tomb and then rising a glorious youth. This is where we see this cycle. And if this happened from this world into ours, what is the ascension and the rising from our world into the next? MacDonald is a master. The way he paints these pictures is just gorgeous.
It wraps up by the story of a specific woman in this other world who dies. She lays down and dies with this longing. And he says, at that time, I almost believed that a child, pale and peaceful as a snowdrop. He takes it back to the flowers. When you die there, you ascend to this next level. And for her, she ascends here, was born to us within a fixed season from that stormy afternoon. So yes, when the idea then is that our next step then is another ascension to something so much greater, that longing again to be consummated, not just love and companionship like this story to ours, but something even greater. I mean, he puts this in like 3 pages. It's so good.
But again, has nothing to do with Anados. Or
No.
it doesn't seem to.
Side story, but it's great.
And this is where people get confused with this book. And the next story, we're going to do this really fast because, again, we could spend forever on it because it is awesome. This is the story of Cosmo von Werstal, a student at the University of Prague. I love this story so much, and I'll try not to talk too much about it. Cosmo is a loner. He's a student. He's kind of that picture you think of the dark, brooding intellectual. He studies everything for the sake of knowledge. His one-room flat is covered with beakers and Bunsen burners and a skeleton and armor and swords. He's loved by his fellow students, but mostly because he's mysterious. None of them are actually friends of his. He gets along with everybody, but nobody's close to him because he is so absorbed in his studies and thought. He does traditional learning, but he's also got some books of magic tucked away in a box, mostly because he thinks they're interesting. And this is his life. Well, he is known as a master of all things military. Where he came up with this, I don't know. But for some reason, he is a master fencer, swordsman. He knows armor. He knows all this, and all the other students know it. So one of the other students comes to Cosmo and says, hey, I want to buy the suit of armor, but I want to make sure I'm not being cheated. Can you come with me? And he does. And he walks into this old secondhand store. The armor is fine. They end up buying it. But while he's there, Cosmo looks on the wall and he sees a mirror. It's old, and the carving around the edge is exquisite. And it captures him. He is fascinated by this. And he ends up going back later and asking the shopkeep, can you take that down and let me look at it? And he does, and he blows off the dust from the glass, and the glass is pristine. This is a beautiful mirror. And he keeps looking at the carving, and it gets more intricate and intoxicating as he looks at it. And he's just got to have this mirror. It is so cool. And the shopkeep names a price that's far beyond what he can pay. And Cosmo sadly puts the mirror back on the wall, and the guy says, well, I charge too much? And I love the line. He says, it may not be too much for you to ask, but it is more than I have to give. Mm. And the shopkeeper looks at him and kind of gives him the side eye and says, I like you. You can have it for a quarter of that price with one deal, one caveat. If the time comes to sell it, you have to sell it back to me if you ever want to get rid of it. And Cosmo jumps at this. It's still a lot of money, but he can make it happen, and he takes the mirror home. And the shopkeeper makes this interesting line in passing after Cosmo leaves. He says, 6th time I've sold that. I bet the lady's getting tired of this by now. And this is where it gets interesting, because Cosmo takes the mirror, he goes back to his place, he puts it up, and he starts studying the carving. And it's even more interesting and more intricate than he thought it would be, to the point that he doesn't really pay attention to what's going into the glass until a woman steps into the glass. And she is beautiful. And looking in the glass, it looks like she should be in the room with him. But the way he's lined and set up, if he turns around, he won't actually be able to see her. So he can only see her in the glass. She clearly can't see him. He can't see her. But it is his room. He can see the skeleton that he's got in the corner. He can see all his stuff. She looks sad. And she looks grossed out by the skeleton. But eventually she sits on his one couch, imagine a futon basically. He's a college student, and she goes to sleep. And eventually she leaves. He's in love with her from the beginning. And every night she comes back, and every day he starts to work to make his room something that she will love. And so he transforms it and changes it until over time she seems happy in the room, but she always appears sad. Well, eventually he just can't handle this anymore. He can't take it. And so he pulls out his books of magic, and he comes up with a spell where he can summon her to him. And she does. She comes. And she says, how can I love you when I'm in your power? Break the mirror. She's enchanted by the mirror. He hesitates, and all of a sudden he's unconscious. And when he wakes up, the mirror is gone, she's gone, everything's gone, and he is kicking himself because he had the chance to do something for the woman he loved, but he didn't do it out of basically purely selfishness. And so now he doesn't have the mirror anymore. He can't find her. He doesn't know where she is. He then searches for her. He searches and searches, but now he always carries a hammer with him, a little steel hammer under his coat, so that he can break the mirror the moment he sees it. And he tells this in a great way where it pans to other people talking about this princess who seemed to be sick and then seemed to be getting better. Clearly it's this woman. And then it goes to her where she wakes up and says, I'm free. She is finally free. And she puts on her cloak and she goes out to find Cosmo, and she sees Cosmo coming towards her across a bridge, and they meet on this bridge. And he asks her, are you free? And she says, yes, we can be together now. I'm free. He says, well, I'm glad you're free. This was worth it. The person who had bought the mirror stabbed him as he broke it, and he dies in her arms on the bridge. It is beautiful. It is the best love story tragedy I think I've ever read. I think that's all I'll say about it.
You just threw yourself into the one. I offered to do it as another episode.
I had to talk about Cosmo.
I know, I do that. But what is her name? I was trying to find it as you were talking. Princess something. I mean, she is a legitimate princess. But this is a side story. This is a story that our protagonist, Anados, he lives it through reading it in this library. And so as he reads it, he lives it out. So it's so personal. I will say George MacDonald is the king of metaphor and simile. Because at the beginning, he's trying to reconvey this story that he felt that he lived it. He was Cosmo. But he said this is just a shadow of the real thing. Mm-hmm. It is like trying to reconstruct a forest out of broken branches and withered leaves. So that story you just told is this figment, this piece of the true wonder and sadness and joy of this story in this library. It's so good.
So good.
It's a book.
I found the princess's name. It is Princess von Hohenweiss. Eastern European. The names are weird.
They're from Prague.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce it. What do you love about it? It's deeply poignant.
I love several things about it. One is that it's just a cracking good story. Right? You wonder what's going on here. The idea of this somebody coming into the mirror that you have an interaction with, but it's so tenuous, so limited, but you do have some impact. From the beginning, you want to know, are they going to get together? Is this going to happen? Do they truly love each other? So it's a great love story. But then you also have the application of tyrannical love. Love that isn't really love. When he casts his magical spell, that is unlawful. That is wrong. That is abuse. He is in a position of power here. He didn't set up the whole mirror curse thing, but he is benefiting from it and putting her in an impossible situation. There is no way she can consent to this relationship because she is in his power. And George MacDonald highlights that. He brings that point up. And then Cosmo's got a choice. And this is where I think the heroism and the nobility of his character comes in. Because he has the choice to continue to act from authority and power. That's not love, but he could do it. He doesn't. He chooses to act in love and ends up sacrificing himself for her freedom, thus showing that his love is real. And I think that's beautiful.
I do think George MacDonald loved a tearful ending because there is something rich and wonderful to sacrificing, dying. What greater love is there than laying down your life for another? And so he could have kept her in its form that he fell in love with in this mirror, at this reflection of something that's true, but instead he was willing to give that up for the real thing. Whether or not he was with her, but that she would be free was of higher value. So inside of this very short story, he can face an amazing amount of love and sacrifice and intensity and just deep things that we feel but are hard to speak. And he does it in these pictures, and these all mirrors are magic mirrors. This was a magic mirror, and this guy was called to break it for the real thing. Mm-hmm. It's very good.
So good.
So the library is awesome, but I think we should move on.
Sadly, yes. And man, couldn't we just been forever in that library?
Oh, I love that library. Yes. It's the best.
But there's more to the Fairy Palace. And in particular, there are all these rooms that seem ideal for dancing. Anados does notice that he hasn't actually heard any music since he's been in the Fairy Palace. Anados even states that this is because he thinks he's just not capable of hearing it. Mm-hmm. He thinks there must be music, he just can't hear it. And so he starts to explore these rooms, and there's these interesting rooms that have pedestals and dancers upon them. But they're like, frozen.
Yeah, they look like statues. I got to Magician's Nephew in the Hall of the Statues, but these look like they were just moving. Like if you come a split second before, he would have seen them dancing around or their clothes, whipping as they spin. And he feels compelled to sing. He says, I felt a strong impulse to sing, or rather it seemed as if someone else was singing a song in my soul, and it just wants to come out of him. It's not even his words, his song. He just feels it in this place. To be clear, he spends a while in the Fairy Palace just roaming around, and kind of incrementally, he does sometimes see people when initially he saw nobody. Mm-hmm. They were just all invisible. His eyes, kind of as his shadow recedes and he's there longer, do discern more. But he feels this music more than hears it.
There are also rules. We talked about rules in the fairy world, and in the Fairy Palace, fortunately, they're pretty clear.
Yeah.
There are these signs that say, Chamber of Serenados. Or a sign on the statues, on the pillars that say, touch not.
It seems very clear.
Do not touch the statues. Very clear. Again, though, keeps looking and keeps trying to catch these statues moving because he feels like they should. And then he has a dream. Dreams in Fairyland are always important. And there's two things that come out of this dream. One, in this dream, he happens to accidentally stumble into a room where the dancers are still dancing. And in the dream, once he does that, they don't go back to the pedestals. They're alive and moving. The other thing he finds in this dream, though, is an empty pedestal. And he knows. He just knows in the way you can only be sure in a dream. This is the pedestal of the Lady of the Marble. He hasn't forgotten her. He still loves the Lady of the Marble. And even though the Lady of the Alder claimed to be his white lady, she's a liar. There is a Lady of the Marble that he still longs for and is looking for. And so he wakes from this dream and he decides, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to correct you a little bit. He sees her for a moment in his dream on that pedestal, and he recognizes her. And then this shadow, back to shadows, descends. So he just sees her for a split second in a dream. But he figures this can be undone. He sang her out of the marble in the cave. He's going to try to make it happen in this dance hall as these dancers are spinning about upon. He knows they're there. He just has the feeling. And so, yes, the next night, I love this kind of mental exercise where he can't think about it because if he thinks about it, they're all going to be on the pedestals already. He has to not think about it and surprise himself and them by being like, ooh, a curtain.
That's right. I have to do it suddenly.
Somehow he manages to trick all of them and suddenly dive behind this curtain. I love it. There's this hallway of beautiful dancers in Fairyland just spinning about together, and they rush for the pedestals, but he's already there. They're like, forget it.
Yeah, we're going to keep dancing.
And then they ignore him and continue to dance. What is that about? It's like once your secret's blown, you might as well just give up.
I don't know. This is another one that I spent time thinking about, and I don't have a good answer. There's got to be something around the idea of inspiration. The idea that there are some things that just can't be forced. Some things just have to happen spontaneously without explanation or plan. But that's as far as I've been able to get with this.
I thought it was funny.
It is funny.
Because then they ignore him completely. But he finds the pedestal because there's so many rooms with dancers. He knew there were dancers. They all have pedestals. He finds the one, the chamber, that has his Marble Lady's pedestal there. But he still can't see her. It's empty, seemingly. But then he remembers the song. He has to sing. And so he lets that song that he's been feeling inside him come out. And she appears by inches at a time. First feet, and then ankles, and then legs. Her body upward appears slowly as he sings.
I do feel that Anados has grown over his time in Fairyland, but he's still not following directions. He's still not following the rules, even when he is warned and told them. The sign was very clear.
Yes.
Do not touch. But when he sees her, he can't help himself. He touches her. He reaches out to try and embrace her, and she's gone. She flees, and she cries out, "You shouldn't have touched me. You should have sung to me." Because the song had power. The song was not his, as you said. The song was given to him. And it worked. But then he broke the rules. And he's not done. Because as she flees, as she is whisked away from him, he then pursues her and he comes to a door. Again, the fairy palace is very well labeled.
Yeah.
This door, no one enters here without leave of the queen. You should probably take that warning seriously. He doesn't. And he flees through the door, and all of a sudden, he is outside. He is on a blasted heath with nothing around him except the voice of the White Lady lingering, saying, "You should have sung to me." He is no longer in the fairy palace.
There are so many great details in this, so I'll touch on them quickly. To find her pedestal, he runs to the White Hall of Fantasy, spelled with PH. Phantastes. So the idea of song is integral to this idea of phantastes and this storage of beautiful images in our mind and sensory experiences. But when he's entered the door that he did not have permission to go through from the queen, that seems important. The lady's running away and wringing her hands, crying. And there's these great stones, like tombstones, all about him. Reminded me of the Barrow Downs. Just darkness and almost decay, and this idea of a haunting, but he cannot catch her. Again, with regret, he's done something he can't undo. He was helping and then he hurt. It's a sad truth where he broke it again. He didn't do what he should have done. He started, at least this time he started down that path, but still no. And he's not the one who pays the price. It's this woman who he says that he loved from the beginning, but here I think it's part of him learning what love actually means. Okay,
Yeah.
So if we're going to Cosmo, why was Cosmo even in this book? I think it's this idea of, what does it mean to actually love someone? Does it mean you possess them? Like, I must marry you. That's the only way to love a woman? For a man to love a woman? Certainly not. Here, he's starting to understand. He wants to help, and yet he still breaks it.
Mm-hmm.
He's learning what it means to love someone.
In the Cosmo story, there's a line I didn't read that he talks about his love blossoming into... Oh, no. Do I mean blossoming? No. It withered into lust. And I think there's something about that here where that's not love. Love is something higher. If we go back to our good friend, St. Thomas Aquinas, he has a definition for everything, including love. And he talks about the definition of love is willing the good of the other as other. There are those who nitpick on this, but I think that's a pretty good definition. Willing the good of the other, not your own good, the good of the other.
As he's sitting amongst these tombstones, he finds this hole, like almost a downward tunnel, a pit. And it's dark. He doesn't know where to go from there, or if she's in the hole or outside of it. So he says, I must wait for daylight. But at the end, it says, Anados, I sat down and wept, for there was no help. I think that's very good. He has to sit in it for a while. And the next chapter heading, the reference at the beginning is from Heine, who, again, I didn't know this. George MacDonald read so many things I need to read. Oh my gosh. But I love this. It says, first I thought, almost despairing, this must crush my spirit now. Yet I bore it and am bearing. Only do not ask me how. This is a low point for our friend Anados. This guy is learning hard lessons through mistakes. He really wrecked that. And he doesn't know where this lady is that he wants to protect and help. But when the daylight comes, there's just this pit. And he goes down into it.
And now not only does he have to live with his own memories and his own guilt, but now there are others that start showing up and teasing him. Kobolds! We get to meet kobolds again! We met these in Princess and the Goblin. These are a Germanic fairy race, kind of trolls, goblins sort of way to think about them. And they're pretty harsh. The song he sang to release the woman from the pedestal, they sing it to him in mockery. He has to deal with the mockery. And then all these kobolds and all these creatures of Fairyland who do not mean him well start saying, you're never going to get her. She's not for you. A better man loves her. She loves another man. And they're coming after him and encircled around him. And finally, something in him clicks. And he cries out, well, if he is a better man, let him have her. I think this is where he starts to truly love her, to understand that if there is something better for her, the act of love towards her is to let her have that. And this works. This causes all his tormentors to fall back from him so he can continue his journey.
Yeah, right away. It says it's unexpected and a disappointed approbation. Like, oh, that was the right answer. Good one. You got it. But it's like those voices earlier on when he's in the wood. Now he's down in this pit, and it describes just how dark his thoughts were before the goblins even started teasing him. But they're mocking him. Like, look at this guy. He didn't even have a beginning. How could he have an end? That same kind of mockery, that's what they're doing. But now it's about this lady. I think it's a continuation of those same voices, his same almost internal how he feels about himself. But no, he says, hey, if there's a better man for her, good. And that is the right answer. And they back off him. And it says anytime there's a bend in the path, he always picks the path that goes down. He's going down as low as he can go.
Eventually, the path does lead him into the open. But what an open. It leads him into a sea. A wide, broad, wide sea. We've heard about a sea before.
In Fairyland, yes.
At the very beginning, his fairy godmother tells him about this sea that exists. I gotta admit, I don't understand a lot of what happens next. The symbolism here has got to be so thick and so deep that I'm not sure I'm there yet. I don't think I've spent enough time in Fairyland to really understand what's about to happen. But as I understand the plot, Anados decides he's going to end it all. That he's done. That he is going to take the one action left to him and he is going to throw himself into this sea. This is not normally a laudable action. Suicide is not something that I think George MacDonald would endorse. He throws himself into the sea, but he doesn't die. And even more than that, the sea is welcoming and beautiful. He describes a blessing, like the kiss of a mother seemed to alight on my soul. A calm, deeper than that which accompanies a hope deferred, bathed my spirit. I sank far into the waters and sought not to return. I felt as if once more the great arms of the beech tree were around me, soothing me after the miseries I had passed through and telling me, like a little sick child, that I should be better tomorrow. The waters of themselves lifted me, as with loving arms, to the surface. I don't know what to make of this.
I have some thoughts. I cannot tell you that these are the correct ones. Like, this is exactly what he was thinking. Before he gets to the sea, he meets an ugly old woman. Okay, so there's been a lot about beauty and evil paired together. But this is an ugly old woman who draws near him and he's repulsed. He draws back. But she's like, oh, that doesn't matter too much. I know what'll get you. I know what you want. And she makes herself beautiful. Because earlier, that was what enticed him. Just beauty. And he assumed, like, well, if it's pretty, it's good. He's learned some things. She makes herself beautiful. And he is still repulsed by her because he saw her for what she was initially when he walked up. So there's this drawback from it. And she laughs at him and says, well, you're never going to get your white lady. Might as well be mine. And he's like, that's not up to you. And that's when he keeps going. And it is this darkness. But remember, he's this 21-year-old kid who's inherited. He's still not left the house. He's going back through the choices he's already made. This jumping into the sea, to me, he's lost the fear, basically, of death. This idea that death is the worst thing that can happen. Not so much anymore. He's experienced regret. He's experienced evil with beauty and made these mistakes. He found the woman he claimed to love and protect and broke the rules and drove her off to some unknown, horrible thing. He assumes he'll never see her again. Maybe she's dead. She might be dead because of what he chose to do. He didn't follow his path. So to me, this jumping into the sea isn't so much a death of suicide, but a death to self. Okay, it's this. Again, this is a theory because I cannot say this is exactly what George MacDonald meant. But I think this idea of dying to self is pivotal in it. And once he does so, he has this awakening. He has this peace. And then he can start to truly live.
I love your description of this, and I think there's a lot to that, because the one thing that I kept going through my head, and I couldn't put it all together, but was the concept of baptism. The concept of passing through the waters and coming out into life. And that totally fits with everything you just said. This idea of death to self and then almost seeking death, but finding life and having to go through that death in order to come to life. Yeah, I think you might be on it. I think that might be the nut there.
Yeah, these waters, he has to go through basically, because it says For vaguely revealed beneath the wave, I floated above my whole past. He's jumping into the life he's already lived. His selfishness, okay? And he's floating above it. This is a healing time for him, where he's not overcome by his past, by the waves. He floats above it and becomes healed. Okay, this isn't the end of his story, but it's kind of the beginning.
It is an end and a beginning. George MacDonald is so good.
Fantastic.
Just incredible. Wow. Well, this is a beginning because a boat pops up. He's able to clamber into this boat, and then he washes up on this wonderful little island, and there is another cottage, and he gets to meet another old woman.
I feel like in general, I like the ends of books more than beginnings. Which is a bummer because you spend time toward the beginning and I'm like, oh, here's where the good stuff is. Yes, he comes to another cottage and another woman. And to me, I think, and you can disagree, that this is so much his great, not so great grandmother from the beginning. This is a woman who loves him, who knows him, and she cares for him. He has gone through everything. He has experienced everything. He has kind of been reborn. He is raw. And she takes him in and she cares for him. And she is very loving, this old woman.
She sings to him. And in her song is healing. And these are some fun songs. There's a lot of poetry in the last half of this book. There's some in the first half, but in the last half, there is a lot of music and song and power. And her songs are all songs that comfort him, that heal him. And I think there's a lot to that.
They do comfort him, but they're all sad. If you read the words, I mean, this is just a stanza. Till he wept with the grief that can do no more and thought he had dreamt the dream before. I mean, these are not happy stories and happy songs that she sings him. They have that mix of joy and pain because that's what he's lived now. He's too old now for just joy. The silly songs with the flowers, they had depth too, and I could argue with myself on that. But they were simpler in its way. These have, by definition, joy and pain.
And this woman has sorrow and knows sorrow. Fascinating scene. Again, there's so much to this, and I feel like I only understand a small portion of it. Anados wakes up, and he sees this woman, and this home, this cottage he walks into, he realizes there are 4 doors. And he sees her looking at the first door, and she is weeping. The tears are flowing from her eyes. And then she turns, and she looks at the second door, and she sighs. And the sighs are gentle when her eyes are closed, but they are deep and sad when her eyes are opened. And then she turns to the third door, and here there's a cry of fear and of pain. And then at the fourth door, it says she shudders. And when she turns to him, her face is white, but when she looks up, she smiles. And the smile is beyond telling in terms of beauty. What an incredible passage! What could this mean? These different doors. Well, Anados goes through these doors.
One at a time. So she tells him that he can always come back. So he has this desire to see the rest of the island, right? He floated up here on a boat out of the sea that healed him after his pain. And she says, okay, you can go. But if there's a strange mark, it's actually not even words. It's a strange mark. Look for that. You go through that door, you'll come back to me. Okay, that's the way back. Because the island's not going to look how you think it will. Mm-hmm. In essence, he goes through these 4 doors. So the first door is the door of tears. I opened the door and stepped out. And he wakes up on his father's estate. Like I said, he's never left the house, really. It's a while ago. His brothers are still alive. Apparently, and these were even mentioned, I think, early on. We knew about some sisters. Mm-hmm. He had brothers, and they're playing together. This is something of his past that they played, but then they quarrel, as brothers do. They're children at the time. And basically, he has a fight with one of his brothers.
His favorite brother, the one he loves, the one he usually sleeps with. They share a bed together, and they have a quarrel.
When I woke in the morning, I missed him. My brother. He had risen early and gone to bathe in the river. In another hour he was brought home drowned. Alas, alas, if we had only gone to sleep as usual, the one with his arm about the other. That is his grief. He went through the door of tears. His brother died when he was a child, and he feels at fault.
He blames himself, or at least the situation. Because if they had gone to bed together like they normally did, his brother wouldn't have gotten up alone, and he'd still be alive. Yeah, this is the door of weeping, the door of tears.
He relives it. What anguish. And then he sees this mark, and he rushes out and into the arms of this woman. He saw her live it. He saw her turn to each of those doors. So I think some of the comfort that he can derive from her is knowing that she already knows. She has her pains too.
And she has song.
Mm.
And she sings to him after he comes back from the door. And again, there's sorrow in it, but there's comfort and there's healing. And then he's ready to go through the second door. He's been through the door of weeping, and now he goes through the door of sighs.
He walks into a lordly hall with a blazing fire, and there's a mirror near him, but he cannot see his own reflection. But he does see the room and the people in it. And I love this because, again, with reflections, all mirrors are magic mirrors. But he's really seeing his lady, the marble lady, but in life. And she is with her person. It is the knight, Sir Percival. And they are wed. They are a couple, and they are happy. And they are talking. He learns much in this.
He does, because they talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
The knight. This isn't actually Sir Percival, but it's the person taking that role. This knight is worried about him. The rusted knight. George MacDonald actually used the term the knight with the soiled armor, but I don't actually like that expression.
They said it was red like rust.
So I prefer to think of him as the rusty knight.
Good call.
Anyway, the rusty knight is very worried about Anados, because remember, he's met him twice. Once with the warning, and then once later on when the shadow came between them, where they couldn't trust each other. The woman has also met him twice, and on both occasions, it was Anados' song that saved her. Release her from the enchantment of the marble and release her from the enchantment of the pedestal. And this is fascinating because we get to see the nobility, the virtue, and the love of these two. Because the woman loves Anados and freely expresses that, but not in the same way. And the knight has no jealousy here whatsoever. He says, yes, it's right that you love this man who saved you twice. I worry about him, though, because he doesn't seem to be a man of deeds. He's a man of thought and song, and they don't know what happened to him. And Anados is experiencing all this, and he knows that in terms of as a lover, he's lost this woman forever. But it's a good thing, because this man is great, and they do deserve each other. And the way he can love both of them is to acknowledge that, yeah, they're right for each other. So this isn't easy. This is hard, but it's real. And finally, I do think we see love in Anados.
He basically watches this woman that he loves and the knight intimate with each other. You know, she is helping him take off his armor. They're talking about these great deeds. It is this intimate moment between a husband and a wife. And it says Anados is struck with agony, so he rushes back to the door. And here is where he truly feels rightfully how to love this woman that he awoke with song, and he knows now cares for him, but not in the way of a lover, not in the way of a husband. And it's the old woman who sings to him again and sings to him of what love can look like. And it says after this song that he rose from the earth loving the white lady that he'd taken from the marble as he had never loved her before.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that line.
The next door is the door of dismay.
And I'm going to need your help with this one because I'm not sure I fully understand the picture here. So how did you interpret this door? Behind the third door, he goes back again to his life and he sees a face. He sees a woman that he knows, and he describes it about being at that time when he thought he knew everything before he came into his inheritance, where he didn't think he was a boy anymore. Is this a lover that died?
Yes.
Okay, that was the best. I couldn't tell if it was a lover or if it was like his mother.
No, this is a rejected lover.
Okay.
He rejected her and she died. Not because he rejected her, but it's part of it. It's part of that idea, I think, of regret. Wrongs you've done that you cannot undo. And I don't think it was his fault in this telling. Again, it's not super clear, but there's reference to seeing that room once again. Like as a youth, as a boy, he clearly mistreated a woman, a girl. And in the end, she died and he didn't. And this is hurt that he carries with him. I think going through these doors, well, we can't talk about Lilith, which is another amazing George MacDonald story.
So good.
But the idea that you really have to feel the grief of the wrongs we've done, not because they're not forgiven. George MacDonald, of anybody, would know that your sins are forgiven by the blood of Christ. And it's not that he had to pay for them, but ignoring them doesn't erase them from your heart. He carries these wounds. To me, this is the ocean. He's going through this sea. And so he had to heal from it and become strong enough to kind of go through each of these doors. There is a wonderful book. I'm blanking on the name of the author. It's by the same guy who wrote Tuesdays with Morrie, called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which is not theologically accurate, but it's a really interesting thing where this man dies and they're one at a time. He has to go meet these people in heaven where he basically grieves his grief. You know, he processes hurts. He grows up from them because if you just ignore them forever, they don't go away. And so to me, these doors are him learning. They're him processing his own hurts he's already either caused or experienced. And yeah, this is one of them. And you get the sense he'd almost forgotten about it.
Yeah, you totally do. But this door is interesting because it doesn't end there, because there is this death, but then he passes through into essentially his family crypt, near as I can tell. He talks about these effigies, these carved tombs where he feels along the hand of it and he can feel the signet ring of his family. So he knows that he passes into kind of the death of his family, and he calls out to them. He asks for assistance. And the women of the past, he says he receives a kiss on his lips, says the dead kiss well. This is comforting to him. He feels a strong hand reach out and take his hand. And this is not events of terror. These are not actions of horror. This isn't a slimy zombie that's reaching out. This is love from those who have come before him, reaching out and comforting him. And so as we're learning about love and we're learning about his growth in it, I think one of the other things we're meant to learn is that we don't go through this alone, and we can't be alone. When he was alone, when the shadow was separating him from everything else around him, his life was hell. Here, he is reaching out to others, even the dead, and he is finding comfort. And so I think there is something to that we are damned alone, but heaven is always corporate. Joy and love is always corporate. And I think we learned that in this door. It doesn't make it any easier, and he eventually makes his way out back into the cottage, and he is broken, but I think there is something that can be taken from those interactions.
There is a fourth door, and I didn't really give a name to it. The story didn't give a name to it. And when he wakes up in the cottage, the old woman is sitting between him and the door, seemingly preventing him from going through it. He says, "I guessed her design was to prevent me from entering there. I sprang from the couch and darted past her to the door, and she cries out in distress, 'Don't go there, my child, don't go there.' But I was gone." It's interesting. This one, he has no memory of it. He wakes up back in the cottage, unaware of what happened inside that door, and the woman is weeping and holding his head in her lap and stroking his hair with both hands, talking to me as a mother might talk to a sick and sleeping or a dead child. She's grieving over him as he lays in her lap. And this door is very interesting, so I'm curious on your thoughts on it. In essence, she tells Anados, though, you have to go now. You can't stay here anymore. Somebody goes through that door, I am besieged. her cottage, she'll be fine inside, she reassures him, for at least a century.
Yeah, she got wood. As long as her fire is going, she'll be okay.
Yeah, but the waters are going to rise. And to me, that means his past, the sea of his past, is going to drown her cottage out for years and years and years. But it'll go down before she runs out of wood, so she'll be okay. But you have to go. What do you think of door number 4?
I think it's death.
Mm.
I think his final death.
So how did he make it out?
Not on his own. Wasn't in time, and it required somebody else to come in, sacrifice, and save him.
Mm.
Can you say Jesus?
Yeah.
Again, this is not an allegory. So there's not a one-to-one here. What
Right.
we have are these different flavors and symbolism, but I think we see that here. I think he, in rashness and foolishness and sorrow, sought to go through this door where he knows he wasn't ready, and somebody else paid a price to bring him back.
She calls it, at the end here, at the end of this chapter, the door of the timeless, and that she went to find him. She said, to find you, for if I had not gone, you would never have entered again. Because I went, the waters around my cottage will rise and rise.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not his time, and she rescued him. There was a substitution.
The door of the timeless gets mentioned in another place that we've actually already talked about in The Great Divorce. When George MacDonald, as his guide in The Great Divorce, is trying to clarify to him, this isn't real. This is not meant to be a picture of the afterlife. Don't pretend it is. What does he tell him? He says, when Anados looked through the door of the timeless, he brought nothing back with him. Mm. And so this is what he's referring to.
Oh, great reference. I had not put that together. Very good. Anados has some true grief here too, because this woman, this grandmother, is now stuck in this house for who knows how long. And he grieves. He says, I have brought this evil on the best and kindest of friends who has filled my heart with great gifts. He has been happy there, and he's learned there. This has been a wonderful experience for him. But she basically comforts him. She says, don't think of that. I can bear it very well. You go, you live. This is my role here. She's wonderful.
She is wonderful. Turns out...
Oh, wait. I love this one. She says, go, my son, and do something worth doing.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, do that.
She tells him one other thing before they're separated. She tells him to remember that she knows about something good that's going to happen to him. That's it. That's all we get. But something good.
Yeah. What a promise to live your life looking forward to something good. You've been promised something good. Wouldn't that change your day to day?
I would hope so.
I would hope so. Yeah. Absolutely. Man, this book is wonderful. We are nearing the end. This is much longer than we usually talk, but this book is special, and we have saved it for our number 50, regardless of what the number says on your episode listing. This is our number 50.
This was definitely a special book that I knew was going to take time to go through, but is worth it. The next adventure that happens, I've said this several times, I love this part of this book, and I truly love this part of this book.
I do too.
Because this is where Anados meets up with the two noble youths. So what happens?
They are brothers from the beginning. He walks up to, is it a castle? But they are blacksmiths. These are large, powerful men working. They have swords and anvils, and they're working in the heat and creating armor and all these things. But they speak to him, and to his surprise, they say, brother, will you sit by the fire and rest till we finish this part of our work? Immediately, he is family.
He's accepted as a brother, and he is honored by this. Anados has grown. He has just been told by this wonderful woman that he needs to do something of worth, and it turns out he's going to have an opportunity to do that now. And these brothers welcome him as a brother, and they tell their story. They are sons of a king of this land. But this land is troubled because there was an old castle that had fallen into disrepair, and 3 giants had taken up residency in this old castle. No one really worried about it for a while. They seemed to be kind of fixing it up, but they weren't bothering anyone, so it wasn't really a big deal until they fixed it up to the point that they didn't fear attack anymore. And then the giants began terrorizing everyone around them. They would capture people, they would rob people, knights would come to fight them, and they would kill them, destroy them, and there's a whole host of people locked away in their dungeons waiting rescue. The king has trouble. He's got wars in other places that are taking his attention and his men, but his sons were not going to let this pass. And so these 2 sons have determined they need to deal with this. And so they go to seek the counsel of a wise woman who doesn't live very far from here. This is the same woman who just was so kind and helpful to Anados. And she tells them, you need one more. You need a 3rd brother. I got a guy in mind. I'll show you what he looks like. Wait till he comes to you. And in the meantime, she instructs them they need to learn how to make swords and armor. They need to master the blacksmithing craft. They need to keep in constant training for battle. And they need to wait for Anados to come.
So, again, there's so much I love about this. They walk up to this woman, and they have been raised as princes, knightly in that. And they've been well exercised. They've learned how to be knights. But she asked them, so you've not actually fought for life and death? And they're saying, no, we were forced to confess we had not. And I love her response. So much the better in some respects. Okay? There is a benefit to not having to hazard it all, to not having killed, to not having done these things. They've been trained to fight and trained to work and exercised and done all these things, but so much the better in some respects that they haven't actually had to kill. They haven't been called to do it. I think there's layers to that as well. But yeah, she shows them this vision of Anados that we've seen where he's crying.
Yeah, he's weeping.
These 2 like strong knightly men see the dude weeping.
Surely this youth will not serve our end, said I, for he weeps. The old woman smiled. Past tears are present strength, said she. Oh, such a good line.
Amen to that. And then the brothers are like, I saw you cry once. It's very brotherly. Like, I saw you cry too. But I love the brothers because they're not perfect, but man, they are awesome. And they've waited for Anados for seemingly years. And they've been training and they've been crafting their own armor. But when he shows up, they teach him. And they basically ask him, so what are you good at? Because he looks little.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like them. But they do learn that he can feel song. He can sing. He brings them to tears, both of joy and sadness with his song. And this is seen as a virtue.
Yeah, but
a strength.
Only when the song comes upon him.
Yes.
He cannot sing in his own right. It's when the song comes upon him. And he sings. The song does come upon him while he works with them. And it's when he's working that the song comes upon him. If he's lazy, if he's not doing anything, he can't. But he throws himself at this. And then the song comes upon him. And this is beautiful. There's one song in particular that they love. And it's a sad song about a king and a prince, and the prince accomplishing something valiant and dying in the attempt. That's what they think is going to happen here. And he said, the first 3 times I sang these songs, they both wept passionately. But after the 3rd time, they wept no more. Their eyes shone, and their faces grew pale, but they never wept at any of my songs again.
Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful things with the brothers here. Like when Anados first shows up, he's like, all right, I'm ready to work. Teach me. And they're like, no, we will not work today. Rest is as needful as toil. And they share stories. Okay, they get to know one another and they learn to love one another before they go to battle together. They truly are brothers in this adventure, but there are 3 giants and 3 of them. The idea is that each one will take on a giant. But both of the brothers of the king, the princes, it says each had something in his heart, which made each have the conviction they would victoriously perish in the coming conflict, a real sorrow to each of them. But they feel that this is true, that they're going to do this. They're going to help their father, they're going to help their people, but they're going to die in the act.
And their sorrows are different. They're not afraid of death. As we talked about earlier, a big lesson here is death is not the worst thing. That's not what they fear. The sorrows are for the people they love. The youngest is for the father, is for the king. He's very close to the king, and he knows this is going to hurt him and is going to cause him pain. And so he wants to make sure, and he makes Anados promise that he will go let the king know what happened, that the story will be told. The older, though, it's a girl. He loves a young, noble woman. It describes that when he went to train as a blacksmith, he basically pretended to be a peasant. And so, as a prince, she was well below him in the social scale. But as a blacksmith, she was way above him in the social scale. But it didn't matter. It says he was so manly that nobody thought of rank when he was around. And she loved him, and he loved her. But again, he knows he's going to die, or believes he's going to die, and he worries about what this will do to the woman he loves.
Throughout, though, they keep training, and they help Anados make his armor, right? He's late to the party in terms of making his defense. And so these brothers who are experienced help him with that. And I love the quote at the beginning of this chapter. It's from the book of Judges, from the Bible. I put my life in my hands. Mm-hmm. And so Anados isn't as strong as these two. Clearly, they've trained their whole life to date, but he's more agile, and that's his strength in battle. And so his weapon and his armor are different than theirs. But they love each other as brothers, though all of them are different. I love the brothers.
They are wonderful.
And it's very fairy tale to me, this idea of two brothers or three brothers going to do battle with three giants. So they're on the offensive. They're going to go. Except Anados sings a song. And it says, as the last few tones of his instrument ended, basically like a dirge, the death of the song, we all sprang to our feet. They hear the giants coming to them. The fight is brought to them, to their doorstep.
And all that armor they spent forever making, they don't have time to put it on. They leave it behind. These brothers, in their courage, one grabs a battle axe, the other grabs this great two-handed sword. Anados grabs his much smaller weapons because he's not as strong as them, and they run out to face the giants. And it says they spread themselves out so that they're not going to interfere with each other, and they each take on their enemy. This is a well-written scene. It's a great action scene, and it's all from the point of view of Anados. It talks about his battle with the giant and how quick he is and how he responds and how he takes advantage of his knowledge of the weakness in the armor. And it's a shocker, but he wins. He slays the giant. And then he looks to his brothers to see how they are faring.
Both the giants were down, but so were my brothers. Both pairs of combatants were dead and yet locked together as in the death struggle. So, as each of them had felt kind of in their soul, they had died, but successfully taken down their respective giant. And Anados grieves here. He's exhausted, and his brothers just died in the battle. Though successful, they are dead. And it says, as he stood exhausted amidst the dead, after the first worthy deed of his life, I suddenly looked behind me, and there lay the shadow. Anados' shadow is back. Did you forget about it? I think he did a little bit too. Mm-hmm. It's still there, black in the sunshine.
He did do a great deed. And he's able to find the keys on the giants' corpses, and he's able to go and rescue all these people that have been imprisoned in the castle. The local villagers come out and hail him as a hero. It's a really interesting internal struggle he has, because on one level, he's very proud of this. But on another level, he knows, yeah, my giant was not very good. They took the good ones, the strong ones. It's not really on me that I was successful. But at the same time, he does feel it's on him, and pride starts seeping in. And he starts to feel that he has done something great. He loves these brothers, though, and he decides that the best way he can honor them is to take them back to their father. But not just alone. He's going to take them back with the giant corpses so that the father can know what they have accomplished and what they have done. And the father is so grateful. The king loves him for what he has done, puts all sorts of honors on him, asks him all sorts of questions, and like little questions. He cares that they learned how to make chainmail. He asks about techniques of armory. It says that Anados had originally he had planned to ask for the armor for himself as his trophy, but the king loved it too much, and he couldn't ask for it. And so the king ends up putting up all the armor, including his armor and weapons, as a trophy to this combat.
I love this line about the king. So this is the prince's dad. It says, joy and pride in his sons overcame his sorrow at their loss. That's the thing. Death is not the worst thing. These men, these brothers, fought well, and they were successful. They defeated these giants that were terrorizing this land. And this father, while grieving, is so proud. It's beautiful. I love it.
I do too. This scene is moving and touching and heart-wrenching.
The king, with gorgeous ceremony, dubbed me Anados, knight with his own old hand, in which trembled the sword of his youth.
He has finally earned the title. He is now Sir Anados, as the Fairy Queen knew he would be. Anados still has another task to accomplish, though. The two sorrows of the brothers were, one, the father, and now he's been informed of it, but there was also the lady. And Anados feels it is his duty to journey to where the lady is and to tell her about the older prince and what happened. I'm going to read the line here. I anticipated a sore task in conveying to her the news of his glorious fate, but this trial was spared me in a manner as strange as anything that had happened to me in Fairyland. Well, that's a bold statement, because there's some strange things that have happened to him in Fairyland, but yeah, it's true. As Anados is journeying to find where this woman lives, he starts to feel very proud of himself. Pride really steals into him. He starts comparing himself to Galahad. And as he's writing this, he says, I'm writing this as penance, because this is ridiculous and I know it now. But that's what he thought about himself. And as has happened from the very beginning when he is going through Fairyland, he met somebody. There's a boy cutting wood in the forest, and he gives him warning, saying, this is enchanted areas. There's bad things are going to happen. Don't go there. But in his pride, he forgets to listen. And he goes on, and he encounters a knight coming at him.
Initially, he's pipe dreaming and imagining himself like a knight of old, of such glory and renown. But then this knight approaches him, and he admires this knight, but he's also terrified of him. And instead of confronting him and battling him, charging him, he basically defers.
In some ways, this is his worst moment, because this knight is larger than him in every way. But as he looks, he also sees that it's his same armor. And he looks, and the flap on a helmet that gets raised and lowered is called the beaver. And so the book talks about he was riding with his beaver up. That meant that Anados could see his face. It's his face.
Something within me said, spear and rest and ride at him, else thou art forever a slave. I tried, but my arm trembled so much that I could not couch my lance. To tell the truth, I, who had overcome the giant, shook like a coward before this knight. He gave a scornful laugh, echoing through the wood, turned his horse, and said without looking round, follow me.
Literally turns his back on him. It is only a word. He is enslaved to this creature, to this knight that looks like him, but is larger and cruel and can command him with a word. He takes him to a tower, pulls out a key, unlocks a door on a great tower, and he puts Anados inside. And Anados is now in there alone. This knight who compared himself to Galahad and had slain a giant is now alone in a prison with his shadow.
When they walked into this wood and that young boy warned him, like, hey, it's enchanted here. Anna was like, no problem. My shadow just ran away. Like, he thought, okay, fine. Any place where my shadow runs away, it's got to be a good place. Instead, his shadow almost humanified. Is that a word? Probably not. It became a living person, stronger, better than him, scornful of him, and said, come with me, dismount, get in.
Mm-hmm.
And he obeyed. After all the things he learned, even after being loved by these noble brothers, his shadow personified still controlled him. Just said, do it, and he did. It says he's the only thing in the tower with him. There was literally, this is a quote, there was literally nothing in the tower but my shadow and me. That's it.
The very first George MacDonald story that we did was Photogen and Nycteris. And within this, we talked about the idea of the two wolves that are in every person, right? One, the wolf of good, the other, the wolf of evil and darkness. And the little boy always asks in this story, which one wins? And the answer is the one you feed. He has been feeding the shadow. He has been going on his own, not listening to good advice. Pride has entered into his heart and has overcome him. So the wolf of darkness, his shadow, is stronger than he, and he is now slave to it. It's a bleak place for Sir Anados to be right now.
I think that's a really good point, because he was taking good actions. This action with the giant and the brothers, he said, was the first noble deed he'd ever done. But which wolf was he feeding this whole time in terms of listening to good advice and the thoughts he thinks about himself? Oh, that's really good. So he basically has a dream, because this is Fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
Dreams are very helpful. That's another thing about Fairyland. You get stuck, but not forever. The point of Fairyland, I feel like, is to move on, to travel, and you either progress or opposite. I feel like you kind of dictate your own path in Fairyland, whether it's mostly lovely and charming and the beauties of Fairyland, or like the really hard, painful sufferings of Fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
And here Anados has kind of picked this one, but he has this dream. And it involves the beech tree. Remember the beech tree?
How could I ever forget the beech tree? She's wonderful.
She's wonderful. And she loved him, and she wanted him to walk free and without fear. And so here he dreams of the beech tree. And he says, far more than ever, I loved that tree. It's so much more than a tree. So people who have ever been annoyed with the length of the description of trees in Tolkien, I don't get it. I love them. He loves the beech tree, and she's beautiful still.
There's also the moon in this dream, and the light of the moon protects him as well. So there are these aspects of protection he gets to experience in his dreams. It says, when I slept, I was somewhat consoled by my dreams. But all the time I dreamed, I knew that I was only dreaming.
Thus night after night passed away. I should have died but for this. Every night the conviction returned that I was free. The moon here is his friend. There is something about the moon that is a comfort to those who grieve. People who are awake to see the moon aren't always happy. Anados battled his giant in the daytime. And there is much about the brothers in the daytime, in the light. But here he's in the dark. But strangely, now that he's in the dark, it's a comfort. That's when he's free. Again, I don't know what MacDonald was thinking, but there's something very comforting about the moon. If you've had grief in your life, the moon can be a wonderful comfort. And I think that's where he is now. He's sitting with a burden, but he has the moon as a comfort, and she is a wonderful friend.
Totally agree. The moon, always changing, but also always the same. Cyclical, but reliable. I mean, what a great comfort. It changes with you, and it interacts with us. The sun doesn't change. The sun is always the sun. It is what it is. But the moon changes as we change, but yet it's always there. And then the moon is by its very nature communal. The sun shines with its own light. The moon does not have its own light. It's always reflecting another light. And so what a comfort is that the moon, we get to participate in something else. Going back to what I said earlier, we are damned alone, but heaven is built for community. The moon is community. It is never in its own right. And by being that, it can be a comfort to us. And he is comforted in his prison.
And I think even on a rainy day or a very cloudy day, you can still know that the sun is up. You don't always have the moon. There is a dark of the moon. But I think here he is gifted the moon. I feel like the moon phases are different in Fairyland. He got a long moon phase here. But at noon one day, there's a voice that sings to him. Here it's not him singing to bring comfort to others. This voice sings to him.
I can't even express how much I love this scene. Read the book, because there's no way I can do justice to the impact on this. But this is a woman's song, and it is a song of joy, a song of sunlight, and a song of humility that puts strength into him. It says, it finishes, "O man of pride, come into the house so high and wide."
Hardly knowing what I did, I opened the door. Why had I not done so before? I do not know. It wasn't locked.
He trapped himself. He submitted to hell. When you read through Dante, you quickly realize hell is locked from the inside. He had done that to himself, but he could not get out. It took somebody reaching into his prison to give him the strength and the knowledge to do that and to come out of his imprisonment. And if that weren't powerful enough, he recognizes this woman. This is the girl whose globe he broke. This blew my mind. And this made the book all worthwhile. Because I told you that almost ruined it for me. But we learned that didn't destroy the woman. She too went to the fairy palace. And she presented the broken globe to the fairy queen. And she thought she was going to get it repaired and given back to her. But it wasn't. Instead, the fairy queen gave her the gift of song. She didn't need the globe anymore. No longer is she naive innocent. She is now experienced and knows the world, but is not broken. She has the gift of song. And what does she do with it? She goes around and shares the gift to help others. She knew she was going to save someone from this prison. She didn't know it was Anados, but it was. And she saved him. And so the bitterness, the evil, the terror, the horror of their initial meeting gets manifest in this great deliverance and this great recovery. And the woman has joy in herself. She has joy now because it's been given to her, and she can spread it to Anados. And I don't know that I've ever come across a more beautiful passage in a book ever.
That's fair. Because she goes to the fairy queen hoping to have her globe again. Fix it. Fix the pieces. And the answer is no. Fairy queen does not fix her globe at all. But she says, I don't care for it now. I have something so much better. I do not need the globe. I don't know if I can do it. This book's too hard. I do not need the globe to play to me, for now I can sing. I could not sing at all before. Now I go about everywhere through Fairyland, singing till my heart is like to break, just like my globe. And wherever I go, my songs do good and deliver people. And now I have delivered you, and I am so happy. She knows him. She knew him immediately. And there's no reproach. There's no, look what I've done for you. All it is I am so happy.
She was bearing the sun to the unsun spots. The light and the music of her broken globe were now in her heart and in her brain. As she went, she sang, and I caught these few words of her song, and the tone seemed to linger and wind about the trees after she had disappeared. She's not just saving Anados. She's saving others. She is bringing the sun to unsun spots. It's just stunning. This breaks through to Anados. His pride, how can he have pride after this? He finally has embraced humility and must embrace humility, and he learns that it is wonderful. Then first I knew the delight of being lowly, of saying to myself, I am what I am, nothing more. I have failed, I said. I have lost myself. Would it had been my shadow. I looked round. The shadow was nowhere to be seen. Ere long I learned that it was not myself, but only my shadow that I had lost.
I highlighted this whole page.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, this is like the best part of the book.
It is so powerful. And yeah, again, please read the book, everybody, because it is wonderful. And we're kind of actually limiting how much we read because we keep crying.
Yeah, that's, yes.
It is amazing. It is amazing. But it's not done yet.
It's true. Okay, I got another paragraph and then we'll do the rest quick. I learned that he that will be a hero will barely be a man, that he that will be nothing but a doer of his work is sure of his manhood. Another self seemed to arise, like a white spirit from a dead man, from the dumb and trampled self of the past. Doubtless this self must again die, and be buried again from its tomb. Spring, a winged child. Self will come to life, even in the slaying of self. But there is ever something deeper and stronger than it, which will emerge at last from the unknown abysses of the soul. Will it be as a solemn gloom, burning with eyes, or a clear morning after the rain, or a smiling child that finds itself nowhere and everywhere? The chapter ends with a question. What does it look like for us to surpass even what we think is ideal? The things that we think are us perfected. What would it look like for you to be perfected? What we can consider isn't even close because it keeps becoming even greater. It is things even beyond what he can conceive of himself.
No eye has seen, no ear has heard. So true. Anados no longer thinks of himself as a knight. He honors that title too highly. And so he strips off his armor. The only weapon he takes with him is a small axe. And he continues on into Fairyland to find the next thing as he continues through the land. What he comes across is the knight.
With no longer rusted armor, it is the knight, his lady's knight, who he had grown to love a little bit a while back. And now that he knows what true manhood, true knighthood, it's probably not a word either. Sorry, folks. But this knight, his horse is upset because he is towing behind it a dragon.
How awesome is that? This knight is just amazing. He is so cool. And Anados comes up to him and offers himself as his squire. He wants to serve this man. He is not seeing himself in the same league as him. He just wants to love and to serve him. The dragon is amazing. The knight does grant Anados' request. They become knight and squire. And we learn that the knight went to rescue a little girl who was being savaged by this dragon. And he got there in time. He was able to kill the dragon. He left the little girl back at a hermit because she was wounded, but he was bringing the dragon to the mother and father to show them that this monster wouldn't cause any more harm. And we learned so much about the knight during this sequence. And Anados learned so much about the knight because the knight is grim and stern and powerful with the dragon, but he is kindly with the man and the woman. And when the little girl comes in broken and bleeding, the knight is compassionate and gentle and binds her wounds and helps her. This is truly a knight.
says loving kindness beamed from every line of his face. I mean, this man who is large and strong and was battling monsters is gentle with this little girl. And I guess this is what I was thinking of when I said that people don't tend to die in Fairyland. There tends to be this great anguish, this great suffering. This little girl was taken by a monster and is near death, but the loving kindness of this knight and her mother help her. She is healed by their attentions, and it's wonderful.
There's one other side story that I just have to talk about really quickly. Again, this is diversion, but Anados, when he looked through the door of sighs, had seen this knight talking to his lady. But then a little beggar girl had come in and summoned the knight out to a quest. And Anados now has the chance to ask him, hey, what did the little beggar girl want? The knight's really confused because he's like, I don't know how you heard about that, but it's Fairyland, so I'll answer your question.
Sure.
This little girl has to build a set of wings. She has to go to butterflies and moths to request their wings so she can build a set for herself so she can fly to her home. The butterflies and the moths are happy to give up their wings. If she asks them, they will give them. And she's already built a fair amount on the wings. The knight saw these little nubs on the back of her shoulders, but they're not fully developed yet. The girl tells him, though, that she found this great gathering of butterflies that are, there's so many of them and they're beautiful, and she could basically finish her task if she could just go and ask them. But every time she goes to ask them, something beats her up, runs her over, knocks her down, and she goes to the knight to ask for help. The knight doesn't really know what to make of all this, but he's been asked for help, he will help. So he puts on his armor, he takes his weapons, and he follows her through the forest. She goes up to one of the butterflies and begs for the wings. And all of a sudden he sees her just get trampled by nothing that he can see. He ends up swinging his sword at the area he thinks the thing is. And what it turns out is this hideous man-appearing block of wood. Well, when he cuts it in half, both sides are now smaller, man-appearing blocks of wood that continue to attack the little girl. He puts himself in between them and the girl, but he knows he can't keep knocking these things down or knocking them in pieces. Once he engages with them, he is able to see them, and so that's helpful, and there's a lot of these around. Eventually, though, he finds the secret. He trips one, sets it up on his head so its legs are waving in the air, and it can't move. And this is how he helps her. Everyone that runs up to her, he puts it on his head, and the girl can go ask all these butterflies for their wings. The thought of the little girl with butterfly wings. Again, this is another picture I want to see. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine fully completed, constructed, these wings unfurling, and this little beggar girl turning into a butterfly and getting to fly home? It's just, there's so much behind that story. I think it's beautiful. Again, people sometimes have a problem with George MacDonald because these little things pop in. We're almost done with the book, but I couldn't pass that story by because I love it.
It's also a nod back to the story in the library, right? With the other world where the women don't have arms, they only have wings. Mm-hmm. This girl would have both. Maybe that's a different iteration. I don't know. But it's a different little girl than with the dragon, I should say.
Yes, it is a different little girl.
So many little girls who need help, and this knight is willing to help them all. Mm-hmm. The chopping into pieces of the blocks of wood, giant things. I mean, that's a lot like the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse, where he chops up the brooms and they all turn into new brooms. It makes the problem worse. Mm-hmm. So I love that he figured out a solution.
Yeah, and that this knight's solution to every problem is not just hit it harder.
Yeah.
It's not violence. Mm-hmm. He had to come, and we actually learned this earlier when the lady actually asked him to tell the story about the ash tree. And when he takes the axe to the ash tree, it actually becomes a battle of wills where he stares down the ash tree. It's not violence. He doesn't overcome it with violence. It's his will is stronger. Mm-hmm. And so this knight, he's the complete package.
He's awesome.
He's got it all.
So Anados is serving as his squire, and he comes to love this man nearly as much as the woman in this right way. He's happy to serve and he wants to do something. The thing with the giants was a good act. He wants to do that again. He wants to really achieve that, and minus the whole segment with the pride after, to really serve. And it's interesting because he has good eyes now, and they end up in this glade. And it's funny because there's this party. Everybody's in these white robes. The knight thinks something great is happening because it seems like this wonderful ceremony. But Anados has this weird feeling about it. And so he, with his better vision, and I think there's something to door number 4, if I'm going through it. I think the knight went through doors 1 through 3, but remember, door number 4 was blocked by the old woman. And clearly the knight has had some experiences and had to work for some knowledge. But Anados went through door number 4. And I think that has something to do with this clarity of vision here.
It might. I also think this might have more to do with the House of the Ogre and the door he looked in there. Because Anados did have to deal with his shadow. He had to deal with evil within himself. And so because of that, especially now that he has lost his shadow and come through the other side, I think he understands evil in a way that the knight does not. So the knight, who never went to the ogre's house, never looked at that, can't really see evil in others because he doesn't have it in himself. Anados, who had it in himself and is no longer proud, I think can see it in others more clearly than the knight can.
Well, he does here. They keep taking these young, beautiful people up to this platform, and then they disappear. Everyone's in these white robes, and the knight's just kind of waiting. It looks like they're praying or having a precursor to a party. But Anados hates the idea that his good knight is being deceived even. So he borrows a robe and makes his way to the front to kind of find out what's going on.
He leaves his axe as a surety for the robe. He climbs up to the top of what is essentially an altar, and there's a throne on the top of it with this, it turns out it's a wooden carving. He couldn't tell that from down below, but before any of the guards or anything can come after him, he rips this off, and what is underneath is a hole into darkness. And out of this hole jumps a beast. It is a wolf, a massive wolf, this thing of evil, and Anados is unarmed, but he is not going to let this go after his master, and he grabs it by the throat, and it says his one hope is that even in death they won't be able to pry his hand away from the throat of this beast.
If you think about it, that is exactly how his brothers died.
Yes.
He hopes to die as well as his brothers. The wolf does die with his hand upon his throat to kill this monster who's devouring people, but they made it so beautiful, right? This idea of beauty but evil paired together. The wolf now is dead, but so is Anados.
And this next chapter is, again, you got to just kind of read it. I don't know that I can do it justice, but he describes death.
I was dead and right content.
He describes the burial as a thing of unutterable joy and peace for him. He says the sound of the dirt going on the coffin sounds different to him in the coffin than to those that are applying it. He gets to hear his lord, the knight, speaking. He gets to hear his lady speaking about him, and they have kind things. He becomes a part of the earth, and it says he's able to express himself in everything that grows around him. So these flowers come up, and isn't it a primrose?
It is a primrose. It says, I could manifest myself in the primrose, and he does. He's a part of this, just like earlier where he wasn't sure if the fairy left the flower. Here he climbs up his soul, his essence, into this primrose, and his lady, the marble lady, is like, oh, so beautiful. She plucks it, kisses it, and like tucks it in her dress.
Yeah.
He's still part of it in this. And isn't that a death right there of this small flower? It's these echoes of death. But he is so comforted that he is loved and he has served well. He has died well.
That is the first and only kiss he gets from his lady, which is beautiful because it's a right kiss. It's not wrongly ordered. This is rightly ordered love. The story's not over, though. And this is an interesting twist because the last line of this chapter, with this, a pang and a terrible shudder went through me. A writhing as of death convulsed me. and I became once again conscious of a more limited, even a bodily and earthly life. He's found at home, not in his room. He's outside of his room, but his sisters find him, and he's back in the world of men. Turns out he's only been gone 21 days. In our world, although it was much longer where he was. Just incredible.
21 days. He's 21 years old. This young man has traveled through his past, and some had been forgotten, and some he got to experience, and I think some was unimportant. But the pieces of his past that were important surely were pieces of his trip through Fairyland. And he's found in the open air. Okay, this started with him in his room. If we're going to really dig into it, he was confined before by the idea of Fairyland. He had made this idea of Fairyland around him. Here he's found in the open air. If we're looking at this broad idea, this is much more an idea of freedom and openness. Before he was constrained by his experiences and grief. I mean, in this, we don't even talk about his father and where were his rose petals from? Mm-hmm. Presumably Fairyland. I think the last mention of a rose in this is the rose lamp. So I wonder if it had to do with the alder tree. We don't know. There's all these nods to clearly there's more to these stories because it's not just about his story.
And the story goes on. Mm-hmm. There are more stories and more things. The summary I love. Thus I, who set out to find my ideal, came back rejoicing that I had lost my shadow. What a great story. What a great book. And again, I feel presumptuous even talking about this because I feel like we could do another 3 hours going through other things that I've totally missed. And if I read this 5 years from now, which I will, there'll be other things that I've missed and haven't heard. Is there anything else that you want to comment on?
Just that the grandmother told him something that I hope shapes the rest of his life and how he chooses to live, because he died in Fairyland. And someday he'll die here on Earth, this life he lives like we do. But she gave him a promise, and I hope he remembers it.
I would like to end this particular episode by reading the very last page in my copy of Phantastes. I will end my story with the relation of an incident which befell me a few days ago. I had been with my reapers, and, when they ceased their work at noon, I had laid down under the shadow of a great ancient beech tree that stood on the edge of the field. As I lay with my eyes closed, I began to listen to the sound of the leaves overhead. At first, they made sweet, inarticulate music alone, but by and by, the sound seemed to begin to take shape and to be gradually molding itself into words, till, at last, I seemed able to distinguish these half dissolved in a little ocean of circumfluent tones. A great good is coming to thee, Anados. And so over and over again. I fancied that the sound reminded me of the voice of the ancient woman in the cottage that was 4 square. I opened my eyes, and for a moment almost believed that I saw her face, with its many wrinkles and its young eyes, looking at me from between 2 hoary branches of the beech overhead. But when I looked more keenly, I saw only twigs and leaves, and the infinite sky, in tiny spots gazing through between. Yet I know that good is coming to me, that good is always coming, though few have at all times the simplicity and the courage to believe it. What we call evil is the only and best shape which, for the person and his condition at the time, could be assumed by the best good. And so, farewell. And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.